The first time in a long time, Africans and African Americans are looking at each other with clarity, not as strangers, but as family, as co-strugglers, as survivors of the same global system. And this moment, this unity, could change everything. If you're black and watching this, whether you live in New York, Lagos, Accra, or Atlanta, know this. The future of Africa is your future too. No matter where we were taken, no matter how far we've been scattered, we are one people. Let this be the moment we choose unity over division, truth over illusion, power over permission.
Every year, in their economic surveys, Burkina Faso is the poorest country, Mali is the poorest country, Niger is the poorest country. We are ranked among the last. Very well, if we are as poor as they say, but when the time came to take responsibility, we asked these masters to leave. Why don't they want to leave? When we take the case of Niger, for over 40 years, some countries have been exploiting uranium to produce energy for themselves. From Ottawa to Paris, the streets are lit up. That's the light. But in Niger, it's darkness that is served to us. When you go to our states, our lands are riddled with holes, everywhere in search of precious metals like gold, but often there isn't even the slightest accessible road to reach the areas where they exploit gold, let alone some basic social services. That's why we decided to revolt and take the destiny of our countries into our own hands. There are many other examples. But when we decided to do so, well, we were approached by some armchair slaves to deliver the message of their master, because they had created this kind of polymer chain that rises to the head of our states to serve them. And we came to break the chain. And it's inconceivable for them. They approached us and asked us to fall in line, to become part of the elite that must lead Africa. Because they have a trained and conditioned elite that they must follow, who are embedded in that chain. We refused, Bawafat, to fall in line with them. And from then on, hostilities began. They have infiltrated our areas with several mercenaries, trainers. Agents have descended into the Sahel, hoping to carry out barbaric, cowardly attacks against our populations, hoping to incite them to revolt. In addition to these on-the-ground attacks, communication attacks, manipulation, and disinformation are rampant in their ranks. But the people of the Sahel have understood, and never again will they be manipulated. They know where they come from, they know what they are doing, and they know where they are going. We will no longer allow this. People are awake and fighting today, not for ourselves, but for future generations. And thank you all for the fight that is being waged. This never makes us cry. We will not tremble. We will face it. We will fight for true independence, for our freedom. Because to scare the people of AS, these individuals only have 3 terms in their mouths: democracy, freedom, human rights. Of course, their local lackeys are only elected in a democratic, free, and transparent process, according to them, their values. What could be more normal? That they want to impose this on us, because they are the ones who set the rules. Very well, we have decided to take responsibility for ourselves. That's why on July 26, 2023, when Niger decided to turn the page, the armchair slaves, and their masters got on their high horses. They put their local lackeys forward and decided to wage a war against the Nigerian people. So we said, anyone who dares to attack Niger will face us, because we will wage a relentless war to the last drop of blood against anyone who dares to attack our states. This statement, this decision we made yesterday is relevant today and will be relevant tomorrow and forever. Thus, the AES was born on September 16th, 2023, within a framework of mutual defense. But we deemed it necessary to extend and expand the architecture of the AES. What brings us together today should allow us to venture into other areas beyond defense, notably finance and economy, infrastructure, health, education, and so on. I hope that these moments will be a story we write for the AES, but especially for Africa and the entire world. May God enlighten each and every one of us. May God inspire us in these tasks entrusted to us. And above all, when we carry out our work, let us keep one thing in mind: the supreme interest of our populations.
In a world where oppression often wears a familiar face, a powerful cry for unity is echoing across continents. From the streets of Washington, D.C., to the heart of Ouagadougou, Black voices are rising. They are demanding truth, justice, and a long-overdue reckoning. At the center of this growing wave stands a controversial figure, General Michael Langley, the first Black four-star general in U.S. Africa Command. And the question that haunts many: is he a symbol of progress or a pawn in a deeper game? This video isn't just about one man. It's about a movement. A moment in time where African Americans and Africans are beginning to see their struggle as one. It's about the awakening of a people who have been divided by borders, language, and colonization, but are now united by truth and purpose. General Langley made history when he became the first African American to lead U.S. Africa Command, AFRICOM. For many, it looked like a sign of progress. A Black man, finally in a position of power. But what happens when that power is directed against the very continent his ancestors came from? AFRICOM has long been criticized for its role in destabilizing African nations under the guise of counterterrorism and security. Langley's leadership, while symbolic, has also been strategic. Under his command, U.S. military involvement in West Africa intensified, with operations that many claim target rising African leaders who reject Western control. The irony is painful: a Black general overseeing missions against African freedom fighters. And that contradiction is sparking outrage, not just in Africa, but among conscious African Americans who see through the illusion of representation without liberation. At the heart of this resistance stands Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the young leader of Burkina Faso. Rising to power after a people-led coup, Traoré represents something rarely seen in today's politics: a bold, defiant African voice rejecting Western domination. He's nationalized resources, called out France's neo-colonialism, and taken a strong stance against AFRICOM's presence. To many, he is a modern-day Thomas Sankara, unapologetic in his belief that Africa must stand on its own. And that's exactly why he's a target. Traoré's resistance has not gone unnoticed by global powers. Intelligence leaks, shifting media narratives, and military pressure all point toward a familiar playbook: isolate, destabilize, remove. For decades, the Black diaspora has been divided by borders and manipulated narratives. African Americans, fed a steady diet of anti-African stereotypes, often felt distant from their roots. But something is changing. The rise of pan-African consciousness is shifting hearts and minds. Now, a new generation is watching closely. They see a Black general used to attack a Black freedom fighter, and they are saying enough. Protests have broken out across the U.S., demanding Langley resign and AFRICOM pull out of Africa. Placards read, "Black skin, white agenda, and don't use us to destroy our motherland." This awakening is not accidental. It's a spiritual resurgence, a realization that true freedom for Black people anywhere is impossible without freedom for Black people everywhere. Western empires have long mastered the tactic of proxy control, and in the 21st century, one of the most dangerous tools is representation without revolution. It looks like progress: a Black president, a Black general, a Black CEO. But when those figures operate within systems designed to control and exploit their own people, it becomes clear: this isn't liberation, it's assimilation. General Langley, whether knowingly or not, has become a symbol of this tactic. By placing a Black man at the head of AFRICOM, the U.S. government seeks to soften criticism and deflect accusations of imperialism. But more and more people are seeing through the illusion. It's not about skin color. It's about whose agenda you serve. And right now, millions believe Langley's agenda is not Africa's. What we are witnessing is rare: a global Black movement with shared consciousness. African Americans are rejecting the idea that they should cheer for any Black figure in power. They are asking harder questions. Who does he serve? Who benefits? What impact does this have on Africa? At the same time, Africans are recognizing that their fight for sovereignty can only be won if their diaspora stands with them. And that unity is beginning to take shape through social media, grassroots activism, and channels like Make Africa Great. Movements like the Pan-African League, African People's Socialist Party, and others are creating the foundations for a united front. A new pan-Africanism, grounded not in slogans, but in strategy. Will Langley resign? Unlikely. But that's not the point. This protest isn't about removing one man. It's about awakening a billion. It's about dismantling the systems that prop up neo-colonial control, even when wrapped in Black skin. It's also about hope. Because for the first time in a long time, Africans and African Americans are looking at each other with clarity, not as strangers, but as family, as co-strugglers, as survivors of the same global system. And this moment, this unity, could change everything. If you're Black and watching this, whether you live in New York, Lagos, Accra, or Atlanta, know this: the future of Africa is your future too. No matter where we were taken, no matter how far we've been scattered, we are one people. Let this be the moment we choose unity over division, truth over illusion, power over permission. Subscribe to Make Africa Great and be part of the movement.
I greet you all with deep respect, with revolutionary love, and with the fire of Pan-African hope in my heart. It's, David, truly an honor for me to speak today, but not just as a guest, not just as a voice, but as a fellow traveler, I would call it, on the road to African liberation. Whether any one of you, dear brothers and sisters, joining us from the Sahel region, where the revolution is taking place, from North Africa, where I come from the rest of our beautiful continent, from any grassroots movement in our towns and our villages, I truly regard myself lucky to be with you tonight. But I really must stress this, David, because I'm always scared of this one point. The revolution cannot be streamed and is not content on Twitter or Facebook or TikTok. We must make sure that we create a space for truth, a space for courage, and for actual revolutionary work. We are not here to repeat headlines. We are not here to sound smart. We are here to ask hard questions, tell honest truths, African truths, and affirm the dignity of African people everywhere. So, of course, I lived through the Libyan revolution experience. I was born in Libya in 1974, just 4.5 years after the revolution that was led by our great son of Africa, Muammar Gaddafi. And if you allow me, David, to make sure that I do not miss anything, I have prepared a few talking points that I believe will help to set out the discussion and the dialogue. If you say that I have maybe 7 to 8 minutes, I could go through them in order, and then I will be very happy to listen to the questions about Gaddafi, Libya, the empire, colonialist forces, what is happening now in the Sahel region. Would that be a fair plan ahead, or would you like to do it question, answer, question, answer?
No, absolutely. Let's do it your way.
All right, thank you. So let's start with the truth that nobody, even amongst us, wants to say out loud. The revolution in Burkina Faso could be crushed. But if it isn't, if it survives, I believe it could become the engine of African liberation for the whole of the 21st century. That is why it's under attack. That is why Traore, our brother, is being targeted. And that is exactly why we must rally now, not later, now, before it's too late. Because we have seen this story before. And I have lived it up close. I worked with the great Muammar Gaddafi. I spoke formally for him. He appointed me as his official spokesperson. I defended him on the international stage. I knew him personally, not as the caricature in Western media, but as a builder, as a visionary for Africa, as a true unifier of the continent. So let me, brothers and sisters, tell you clearly, Gaddafi was not killed because he was a tyrant. He was killed because he had a liberation plan for Africa. A dangerous, practical, and I would love to emphasize practical, continental plan. He wasn't just dreaming or fantasizing. He actually had things happening on the ground. He worked for a gold-backed African currency. This means economic liberation for us, guys. To free us from the CFR, the franc, from the dollar dependency. He built the foundation for an African central bank that he wanted, by the way, to have it hosted in Nigeria, in Lagos. And he launched Africa's first satellite system. And the first African satellite was launched in 2008. I witnessed its launch. He funded pan-African infrastructure, education, and liberation movements, as many of you are aware. He championed the African Monetary Fund to replace the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, which controls most of our continent. And he championed the African Investment Bank and a unified, he called it the African Natural Resources Organization, a pan-African organization to oversee the utilization of all Africa's wealth, oil, gas, gold, everything, aluminium, iron. That is why they killed him. Not for human rights, not for democracy, but because he challenged the colonial structure from the root. And now they see a new threat, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. He is not a puppet, as they would like him to be. He speaks clearly. I listened to him, and I loved the way he spoke, so humbly, so straightforward, so clear. And he's young, of course. He's self-disciplined as an army man. He has already expelled French forces. Let's remember, dear brothers and sisters, Gaddafi, he came into power in 69, September 69. Within 7 months, he kicked all the American military bases in the country, all the British military bases in the country, all the Italian illegal settlers in the country. The American base in Tripoli, a Wales base, was the biggest American military base in the whole world, bigger than those in Japan and in Germany. Traore is nationalizing resources, isn't he? He is forging unity with Mali and Niger. He is doing exactly what would dismantle the colonial imperialist structures in Africa. He is telling Africans that they can indeed be free. Something that some Africans unfortunately forgot about. Many of our brothers and sisters in the continent, they forgot how to be free. And that's why, because of all of these steps that Traore is taking, the empire is again sharpening its blade. Or actually, shall I say, it's sharpening its teeth, because I see it as a beast. A blade assumes that the empire is a human being holding a tool. I see it as a beast, sharpening its teeth. They are, of course, calling him a dictator. I listened to some French media. I listened to British media. They're calling Traore a dictator. Exactly what they called Gaddafi. They're calling him, they're accusing him of crushing civil society. They're saying that he is a threat to regional stability. Actually, dear brothers and sisters, if you listen to the French media and to the British media and even to the German media, you will notice how they repeat their talking points. Sometimes it feels that they are copying each other, as if there is some media planning room somewhere that is distributing these leaflets and these talking points to the media in Germany, Britain, France, Italy, and the States. What they mean by they say he is a threat to regional stability is that he is a disobedient African, the very kind of African they dislike and fear. And in the eyes of empire, disobedience, brothers and sisters, is the only real crime. Let's be clear, the West doesn't care if a government is elected or installed by tanks. It only cares whether it serves Western interests. You can be a dictator if you want. Many friends of the West are dictators in the Middle East, in Africa, in Asia. As long as you serve their interests, you give them the wealth of your country, you obey their political and military orders, you are their beloved friend. We, of course, know that it's not friendship. It's being an agent for foreign powers. We must expose these double standards every time, because if we don't, their lies become our reality. And the most dangerous of these lies is, and I want David to for this point to be one of the main discussion points, divide and rule. This is the oldest trick in the book of colonialism. They divide us into categories. They create Arabs against sub-Saharan Africans, Muslim against Christians, Tuareg against Fulani, Berber against Bambara. Those divisions did not come from us. They came from colonial maps and imperial strategies. In our history, dear brothers and sisters, and this is something I really would love to emphasize tonight, our history tells a different story from this division. I will give you an example. Omar al-Mukhtar, the national hero of the fight against the Italian colonial army in Libya. He is our leader in the fight against the Italians in the first quarter of the 20th century. He fought in Sudan. So he fought the Italians in Libya, but before that, he fought the British armies in Sudan in the late 19th century, and he fought against the French colonial army in Chad and Niger, and some reports mention that he might have been even further away in Mali. And then when the Italians came to his home country of Libya, he went back to fight them. He had a pan-African fight against colonialism. Emir Abdul Qadir, who is the liberator or the fighter for freedom in Algeria, when the French came in the 1830s, his army of freedom fighters consisted of Arabs, Berbers, and Sahel Africans who joined him to fight against the enemy of Africa. The same history we have with Abdul Karim al-Khattabi, who is the freedom fighter of Morocco, who had a huge following from Morocco down to Mauritania. And in his army of freedom fighters were African blacks and African browns and Arabs and Berber and everyone. So we must make sure that we tell our story. Narrative is part of liberation. Narrative. And that's what you are doing, David and Ali and all of your comrades. You are establishing a narrative for freedom, for liberation. And this is part of the fight. And let's remember as well, even in our modern history, when Africans stood up to fight for liberation after the Second World War in the 50s and 60s and 70s, African countries that gained independence first immediately helped other countries. So you have Nasser of Egypt, who was a great pan-Africanist who helped revolutions in many African countries. We have Ben Bella and Boumediene of Algeria in the 60s and 70s. We have Gaddafi, of course, as you all know, how he helped the freedom movements in Zambia, in Mozambique, in Angola, in Uganda, in South Africa. As a matter of fact, allow me to quote Mandela, the great Mandela, who said, Gaddafi is the greatest supporter of African liberation on the continent. And you know where he said this? He said it in London. He was in an official visit in London. So this is our tradition. This is our narrative, our history, not the history of divide and rule, not the history of divisions. Now let me speak not as an analyst, but as a revolutionary. I do not speak of this struggle from theory. I carry a responsibility. I defended the revolution in Libya with my voice, but there is something else. When the time came, during the NATO invasion of Libya, I took up my Kalashnikov and I fought against NATO in the streets of Tripoli, the streets of the city of Bani Walid, and many other towns and villages in Libya. Many of my comrades fell to my right and to my left, and I had to bury many of them in the deserts of Libya. Some of them were female fighters, by the way. We had Libyan girls fighting. We had Libyan men, young and old. At one point, we buried an old man who was in his late 70s. He could barely hold a weapon because he believed he was fighting the enemy of his homeland. We must do the same for Burkina Faso. And this, I'm gonna conclude with this. Our stand with the revolution in Burkina Faso should take all faces and all dimensions. It should be a stand in the war, in the battle of the media, in the battle of society, in the battle of the military, and in the battle of the hearts and minds. And to do so, dear David, and I say this to all of you, brothers and sisters, We must not repeat the mistakes committed or made by our great leaders, whom we respect, even by Gaddafi and Lumumba and others, Nkrumah and Nyerere and Samora Machel and Kenneth Kaunda and all of the great leaders of African liberation from the south and the north. That's why we must speak to Ibrahim Traoré both with love and with harsh truths. We must tell him that he cannot fight this fight alone. He needs to build a pan-African revolutionary base for himself and for the revolution in Burkina Faso. He needs to include us, you, all of you listeners, and include us in a practical, viable way, not just supporting social media on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. No, we need to be on the ground in Burkina Faso, in the Sahel region, and everywhere in the continent. We need to be a part of revolutionary movements, popular committees, grassroots organizations, helping the revolution in Burkina Faso to win. Otherwise, the West is very good at isolating revolutionary leaders and revolutions. They have the money, they have the practice, they have the experience. They have been doing it for 2 centuries. And I can see that they will be able to isolate and defeat the revolution in Burkina Faso unless our brother Ibrahim Traoré comes out and reach out to all of us and lead a revolution that is bigger than Burkina Faso, a pan-African one. I hope our brothers in Burkina Faso will listen to us and will reach out to all of us and engage us in a truly revolutionary project for all the continent of Africa. It's time for us, brothers and sisters, to fight, not just with our voices, but with our arms, with our hearts, with our minds. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ibrahim. And I think at this point, I'm going to bring in Sophie Mokoena into the conversation. So for those of you who don't know, Sophie is the senior Africa editor at SABC, which is South Africa's premier state-run broadcaster. And she's blessed us with her presence today. Sophie has a very well-known Pan-Africanist social media presence, which is quite unusual for a journalist of high profile in Africa. There are not many of us who are brave enough to do that. And I'm very happy to have her here. So, Sophie, you've seen, and obviously we've communicated before the space, and you have an idea of what the speaking agenda is. So, what would you like to speak on specifically?
Well, thank you so much. I think, as you pointed out, for me, I want to speak as a historian or someone who has documented events and incidents that can make us understand what is happening and perhaps how to avoid the mistakes of the past. Because the speaker before me spoke passionately about Muammar Gaddafi, I met Muammar Gaddafi in Durban in the year 2000 when there was a launch of the African Union in Durban, South Africa being a host. And South Africa was the first chair of the African Union, moving from the Organization of African Unity. And it was a short encounter in terms of seeing him up close, and I just posed one question, because at that time there was a contestation and there were reports that there were leaders on the continent who were opposing the launch of the African Union because some had reservations in terms of the shape and form. Others, the query was that South Africa was going to be the first chair of the AU, and you know that South Africa was the last country to be liberated, and therefore the issue of saying they don't have experience, we've been here before, why now those who are just arriving leading this prestigious organization on the continent, a transition from the Organization of African Unity to the AU. And then, but I want to touch also on the resolution that led to the invasion of Libya. Here, I want us to understand that that resolution is the resolution that gave NATO power to invade Libya. The problem is if we don't read documents properly, we will make a mistake. If leaders surround themselves with yes men and yes women who cannot say, but this one don't agree to it, we will continue to make mistakes. The biggest mistake that was made was when African countries supported that resolution and later came back and said, we didn't understand certain clause and that they meant invading Libya. The South African ambassador at that time, Dumisani Khumalo, had warned his political heads that this resolution, the way it's been drafted, might lead to the invasion of of Libya. Unfortunately, the politics were at play because what often leads to this situation that we are discussing, it's the divisions on the continent, political divisions. And therefore, I'm trying to say, if the African continent doesn't read and learn from history, we will continue to find ourselves in this situation. Now, I'm saying, even now, the problem is the leadership of this continent. After that coup, one would have expected that the leaders would have, yes, suspend Burkina Faso, but appoint a team that will visit Burkina Faso to engage with the leadership in terms of a transition and a process to move to what would be in the charter of the AU an acceptable situation. The previous leadership of the AU, when there is or when there was a coup in any country, they were quick to ensure that you move that country to normalcy so that you can have elections and quickly bring back the country into the fold so that you can continue to guide and help that country. But with Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, this delay in the AU reaching out and helping these countries to return to a situation where they can be back as part of the African Union, for me, it's very problematic because as long as they are isolated, they will continue to experience challenges and people will question their authority and their legitimacy. I'm talking about even people outside their countries on the continent. And therefore, you need to move with speed to engage the three countries so that you can bring them back to the African Union. I know it might be problematic for the regional organization to do that, ECOWAS, because of how they went about this problem. They were quick to threaten military intervention, which made these young generals to take a hard line. And therefore, you need perhaps people from outside the region to assist them and to engage them. I will move to what the former South African President Thabo Mbeki said about that situation in the Sahel region. He said, yes, the AU Charter doesn't condone coups. They have to be suspended, but we must ask ourselves hard questions. What has led to the 3 young generals taking power the way they did? Address the cause, not the symptom. And therefore, that speaks to the AU having to take a lead in assisting those countries to come back in the crawl so that all countries can engage them. And as you can see, some of them are very young, and therefore you need also senior leaders on the continent to help them to normalize the situation in their countries so that everybody can be able to engage with them freely. Now, the issue of threatening military intervention led to a situation where ECOWAS now cannot go back and engage them because that decision was just a stupid decision. You don't threaten people with military if you want to help them. Let's take, for an example, again, I'll base my example on what I know best, the story that I covered extensively. I have spoken to the former South African president on many issues, even privately, just to learn, because I gain experience by engaging people. I'm not a reporter. I learn. I'm a historian. I want to tell history. And I engage with everybody so that I can also capacitate myself with knowledge. When there were problems in Zimbabwe, the then Prime Minister of Britain, Tony Blair, wanted South Africa, to consider a military intervention in Zimbabwe. The very same former South African president refused, and he said Zimbabweans themselves will find a way to resolve their problems. You can't come with military intervention because ordinary people are going to die, and already ordinary people are dying. That's the example that military intervention is no solution. And lastly, when there was a problem in Iraq, again, South Africa said military intervention will not be a solution. The solution will be engaging Saddam Hussein. South Africa even sent scientists from South Africa because you know that the then apartheid regime had built a nuclear capability, the war capability, and they dismantled that nuclear capability in 1990, I think 1990 or 93, and signing that nuclear treaty, non-proliferation treaty, and then South Africa even today doesn't have a nuclear war capability. But you had people who knew or who were part of assembling of that nuclear capability then by the apartheid regime. The government asked them to go to Iraq to go and check whether Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. They were accompanied by politicians. They went there. Saddam agreed. The scientists went there. They couldn't find those nuclear weapons or capability or bomb. And South Africa reported back to the United Nations that there are no weapons of mass destruction because the leaders at that time around the world trusted South Africa so much. George Bush and Tony Blair consulted South Africa, the then South African president, about this intention to move, in Iraq. He warned them and he pointed to them to go to the UN to get that report that points to the fact that there are no weapons of mass destruction. But they were so determined, and they did that. They couldn't find a weapon of mass destruction. Today, Iraq is a former shadow of itself. The same with Libya. Today, Libya is divided into two parts. And therefore, what I'm trying to say is that we have capacity on the continent to resolve problems, and I think we must use those skills that are available on the continent to try and reach out to those three countries so that a process of bringing them back to the AU can start, and therefore, when they have been accepted back into the AU, many countries must engage with them. And therefore, the solution of the Sahel region, those three countries, will only come from the continent, and the military intervention will not lead to a lasting solution. That is my view. And I hope that somebody from Burkina Faso, from highest office in the land, is listening. I hope the AU, through its Peace and Security Council that has been weakened by the reforms, is listening so that they can do the right thing as it's being explained in the AU Charter in terms of what needs to happen to address a challenge where a country experience a coup, to ensure that that country is brought back into the continental body so that all countries can engage that country. Because if you don't do that, the external forces will find a way and that country will never be stable again. Example, Libya and Iraq. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophie Mokoena. So we happen to have on the panel a former South African Navy admiral who later became a Minister of Parliament under the Economic Freedom Fighters, the EFF, who many of us may know. Her name is Kainsile Litchfield Shabalala. And I just thought to ask, obviously you are a politician now, so from your vantage position, I thought I would ask a question or set a thematic point that is unique to your area of expertise. And that question is, were the attempts at incubating institutions centered around incubating African unity, where those attempts failed under the likes of Nkrumah and Gaddafi, even though they had a lot of success, but ultimately the ultimate goal, which was African economic and political unity, never quite materialized despite their best efforts. Where those efforts failed in the past, what can we as regular everyday on the street Africans be doing right now that will be different, that will make it different this time? Bearing in mind that the one advantage that we have now that wasn't available maybe in the time of Nkrumah or even in the time of Gaddafi was widespread access to the powerful information and communication technology that everyone in Africa has. Now, everyone has at least a feature phone, if not a smartphone, on the continent of Africa right now. During the externally orchestrated so-called revolution in Libya, the prevalent media was still very much one direction media. It was CNN was still setting the narrative for everyone then. That's not the case anymore. Social media now does multiples more sort of engagement than any unidirectional media. So multi-directional media has taken over, and we've seen evidence in places like Nigeria and Kenya that multi-directional media has the capacity to foster some form of decentralized, I don't want to use the term revolution, but it has that disruptive capacity. So what can we be doing now that will make our efforts at fostering African unity successful now, where the giants of the past failed or weren't as successful as they would have liked to be.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you for the invitation and thank you for the space. I was laughing when you called me a politician. I think I'm more a guerrilla and a sailor or a soldier more than I am a politician. I'm a former liberation fighter in South Africa. I'm the first female admiral in South Africa. And I think while I'll answer a political question, just allow me to speak from a military perspective in an attempt to answer you. Whatever Nkrumah, whatever Nyerere, Amilcar Cabral, Patrice Lumumba, whatever it is, Sankara himself, whatever it is that they started, for me, failed because we are not a definition of a free people. And for as long as we continue to define ourselves as free, we are misdiagnosing the problem. And that's why we are not solving it from Ghana 1957 to date. See, there are three things that make a state. Yes, they come from the UN, but I think they are true to what makes a state. And the first one is territorial integrity. And from a military perspective, we have a term that says in a war between two forces, you win by winning ground, meaning you take a town, you take an area. And when you've taken it, you are supposed to be able to hold that ground, meaning you're supposed to be able to defend it. I put it to all of us in this Twitter space now that there's no African country that can defend its territorial integrity. The three Sahel countries now maybe are trying, they are on the journey too, but they are also not there yet. Let's not fool ourselves. I always joke and say a country as small as Belgium can take on a continent of over 1 billion people called Africa, but they are just a minute country in Europe. So we don't have territorial integrity, which is why Libya could be attacked and a sitting president could be killed like a dog in the street. Same thing with Saddam Hussein, even if it wasn't an African country. But I mean, what happened there can happen in any African country. And that scares our leaders. Let's not fool ourselves. They get scared because they look at that and they look at, let me just do my 5 years or my 10 years and leave this mess for somebody else. Because I'm not going to be the president under whom the Marines marched at the capital in 2 weeks' time and the whole country was taken. Because we shouldn't fool ourselves. There's no language the West understands except the military language. So we don't have territorial integrity, David. Secondly, because we don't have territorial integrity, we don't have national sovereignty. What does that mean? It means the ability as a government to defend your people. We can't defend our people. Gaddafi tried, but he still couldn't defend Libyans because we haven't built defense forces. We allow these people to tell us we shouldn't have nuclear weapons. I don't understand how we fell into that trap between you and me. That's why they will never invade India. They will speak from the sides. They will never invade North Korea. They will speak from the side. Those are nuclear states because once you become a nuclear state, they don't speak to you, they speak with you because they know that if they go to war with you, it's not just the end of the two countries concerned, it's the end of the world. So they can threaten like they're doing with Russia, but they will never invade your country. They can try, proxy war like they did with Ukraine, but still, they didn't support Ukraine to the maximum with everything Ukraine needed to win that war. Because they know, they are like tap dancing around the issue because of the presence of nuclear weapons. So we don't have national sovereignty, David. And territorial integrity and national sovereignty produces what is called self-determination, meaning Ramaphosa can wake up tomorrow and say, from this day, 2nd of May, I am deciding to charge everybody who buys South African gold in the rand. And I am deciding that I'm going to make Russia the first preferred country to buy my gold and da. He can't do that because we don't have self-determination. And if you don't have self-determination, it means you rely on loans, and those loans come with conditions. We rely on handouts, which also come with conditions. We rely on foreign direct investment, which is like it's cow dung. I don't want to be insultive, so I've invented this word, to replace the other word, which we all know. I call it cow dung. It's the most nonsensical way of running an economy. Foreign direct investment in the first place, you are already moving like from zero when the other people are already on 1,000. Because if you want foreign direct investment, it means you are saying the dollarization or the euroization or the poundization of your economy continues, and your local economy continues to suffer because the exchange rate is not the same. So this macroeconomic policy is what holds our leaders, at bay. It's like it holds them at ransom, because we don't have the other two things. So we don't have integrity of our territory, we don't have of our nations, therefore we don't have self-determination. And if you were to ask me then, where did those leaders fail? It would be exactly there, because they try and they are radical in the beginning. If they don't get killed in broad daylight like Sangara or Lumumba, or they get cooed like Nkrumah and they die in isolation, or if they die on their own like Nyerere, but by the time Nyerere himself died, he had toned down on his rhetoric on pan-Africanism, because you realize that you are isolated, and in your isolation, because you don't have self-determination and territorial integrity, and therefore you still rely on their macroeconomic policy, meaning you need them to come and invest. You need the IMF. You need the World Bank. You need the European Union. When my brother Musa Ibrahim was talking, and God bless you, Musa, for what you did in Libya. You did your part. The Aluta continua, the struggle continues. I looked at what we call the African Development Bank, and I was like, for interest's sake, who's funding it? I mean, member states, we know member states aren't even contributing enough to the AU. And not because some of them don't want to. There's just simply no resources. I mean, if you look at the dollar exchange with some countries in this continent, it's 1 to 1,000. How do you expect those countries to be contributing to anything other than government just trying to run to survive for the day? But I looked at who's funding the African Development Bank. Yeah, it said member states, which I know it's nice to see. But who else? Because I know the bulk of that money cannot come from member states. European Union, IMF, World Bank, the same people who fund the AU. The EU, how can a continent fund another continent? A continent of former colonizers is funding the EU. The EU is funding us. And then I looked at NGOs in Africa funding them. Same funder. You have the Gates Foundation, you have Ford Foundation, you have the African, you have the World Bank, the IMF, you have all these international institutions, and then the EU again. So I think we fail because we are refusing to raise resources domestically, David. And that speaks to self-determination. For as long as we continue to call ourselves being in the global world, I listen to Africans speak and they're like, we are in the fourth industrial revolution. And I'm like, when were you in the first? Maths doesn't work that way. If you didn't start at 1, you cannot suddenly spring to 4. You can't have a PhD if you didn't do your undergrad and you don't have a master's. It doesn't work that way. So we were never in the first. The first was about our exploitation. In fact, the first was run because of the exploitation of African resources. So we went in the first, therefore we are not in the fourth. So for as long as we continue this fallacy and deception, David, of being free, it was the so-called South African Freedom Day on the 27th, just about 3 days ago. And whoever sent me Happy Freedom Day, I was just like, where's the happiness? Where's the freedom? I don't see it. I call them the so-called Independence Days. I don't call them Independence Days. So for as long as we don't unpack that and teach our people, our masses, because that's where the change will come from. I had a conversation, we started something with Ntsiki Mazwai, Sahel Thursdays, we moved them to Tuesdays, Sahel Tuesdays. And people are saying on Sahel Tuesdays, okay, the 3 countries have decided the military is the instrument for them to use to get to the revolution. What's the instrument in our countries? And then a Nigerian was on the panel, and a Kenyan, and then it was me and Ntsiki, she's South African. And I was like, I can tell you up front, our defense force is not going to do that. We are far from that. Whatever the ANC has laid its hands on, it has really, I don't want to be insultive again, but it kaput in Russian language. Really, it's just broken. And the Nigerian said, neither will the Nigerian Defense Force. The Kenyan said, neither. I mean, Kenya shouldn't even begin to talk. There's a large American military base there. So, I mean, they can just be captured from within. So the only thing that's left really is what you are doing, David, and Alice doing, and all of us who have tuned in here, is to inform the masses, because in most African countries, it will come from the bottom. It's going to be a bottom up. It will come as a national awakening and a national uprising. It will not be top down like it is in the Sahel, because our defense forces are taken too. I think, having said that, David, it says to me that we need to start telling our people something I've coined and that I love. There's a fundamental difference between independence and liberation. Independence is like chewing gum. It can be passed to you at a bus stop. That's why Britain can say, oh, we gave Lesotho independence on that day, or we gave Zambia independence. Yeah, freedom we are given, but liberation we are not given. Liberation is a sacrifice. Liberation is what the 3 Sahel leaders are doing. Liberation is going to take us uniting. I want to echo what the other 2 speakers have said, my sister Sophie and also Musa. Liberation is going to require a collective African effort. No single African country is going to be liberated in this continent. Gaddafi tried, they'll take you out. They'll just send their marines or their drones or whatever and just kill you like a dog in broad daylight, and they will take your country over and install their puppets. That's where we are with global financial architecture and political architecture. So we need to start telling our people then that while you are independent, you are not liberated. Liberation means a luta continua. The struggle continues of liberating ourselves. And that liberation should be mental, it should be economic, it should also be political. People keep saying we gained political freedom without economic. That's again the most cow dung I've ever had. You can't separate the two. If you don't have economic prowess and independence, you cannot have the political, because then you don't have self-determination. You don't have territorial integrity. So these are the conversations we need to start having with our people, to make them realize that it is not yet Uhuru. We have not arrived. Independence was just the removal of the colonial flag, the colonial governor, the colonial army, which in most African countries, France never did. France never removed its army, actually. And then those who have military bases, it means the colonizers' military prowess is still there. So we need to begin the journey of liberation, and I think that's what we are doing tonight. So if you had to ask me for 2 action points of what we need to do as we leave this space tonight, the first one for me would be to do what Musa said. Can we stop sharing everything on social media? There is no general that shares their strategy with the enemy. Now I speak again as a guerrilla and as a first female admiral. There are things that don't belong in public of the things that we are going to be doing. Here, we are just opening the minds of the masses. We shouldn't be sharing our strategies here. 2, the second thing that we need to do is to build the movements within our countries. I've had the pleasure of meeting Captain Traore, by the way, last year, July. And it was actually a very simple thing, which is, I just felt that, hey, you know, while we don't want you to die and we want to protect you with our all might, but I want to know that you lived during my time, and I made an effort, personal effort, to come and meet you. So I met him and he gave us 30 minutes and he listened to everything we said. And I can tell you, the one thing he said was he acknowledges that there is no revolution in Africa that will survive on its own. So for us to support the 3 Sahel countries means we need to start doing work in our own countries. We need to ensure that our countries are also beginning the path of liberation, that we are not stuck at independence. And currently, most of us are stuck there. So that would be my second action point, David. Can we start in our own countries to build the movement that is required, so that these small movements within our countries will then emerge to be a bigger movement? But the hows and the whatever, it's not something I can share here. We shouldn't do it. We would be foolish. And I think I agree with Musa. Musa was correct. It does not belong in social media. I think I'll leave it at that, because we are a lot of panelists and people must still ask questions. So I think I'll leave it at that. And thank you so much for the space.
Thank you very much. Is it Doctor? Is it Mrs.? I don't want to mess up your salutation. That was Kayisile Litchfield Shabalala.
So I actually tell people this. I don't care about the salutation. I always tell people I'm Dr. So-and-so, but I very hurry to tell them that the only reason I did my doctorate was that when I walk into a room of clever blacks, they don't start saying who's this. But I can tell you upfront, there is nothing that I know about my people that I learned from this education system. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much. That was a very powerful submission, and I'm hoping to come back to you later in this conversation. But I'm going to bring in Kim Heller into this conversation at this point.
David, just a quick
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
I know Kim is going to come up next, but I'd just like to acknowledge some of our leaders that have joined this space. I mean, I call them leaders and brothers at the same time because these are some of the people that have to bear with my frustrations in my moments of anger. I call them, I shout, I scream, and as leaders, they just sometimes let it slide. So I can see our brother Clayson from International Relations. He's there. He's one of us. He's a listening leader. I see the former minister in President Mugabe's cabinet, Sevia Kasukwere, is there. And many of you guys, I see Levi, my brother is also there, he's listening, Comrade Temba Godi, and all of you guys. And I think this should be a beginning of something huge that can truly move this continent forward. I see, is it Dr. Matanga? I think hopefully, you also give him an opportunity to speak. Yeah, so I think, I mean, all of you could have been doing other things at this hour, but for you to be here, to be listening to our lived experiences, I mean, to hear our sister Sophie narrating some of the things that she has covered. And also not to Sophie, I mean, I'd like to thank her personally for calling me to order, in moments when I go rogue. I mean, I don't know how many times she has called me and said, please delete that. How can you say that? So sometimes when I do that, I deliberately switch off my phone before she calls me. So I would like to say, welcome. I mean, this is your platform. This is your moment. Me and David, we say a lot of things on our timelines, and I don't really have much to say, but let this platform really bring about an African revolution, not just another Twitter space where people will come and talk and nothing happens out of it. Thanks, David.
Okay, thanks, Ali. Thanks for putting me on blast as well. Okay, so we're bringing in Kim Heller. Kim is a writer. She's the author of a book called No White Lies. If you haven't read that book, you really should. You just Google it. It's available, I think, on Amazon. Now, based on you, Kim, based on your specific experience, well, I don't want to say as a journalist, but as a public intellectual who writes about this sort of issue in Africa, I thought that it was very interesting that the three coups in question, which took place in Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, they all took place within the 3 to 4 year period, within 48 months of each other. And they took place roughly around the same time that coups also took place in Guinea, in Gabon, and in Chad. Now, the coups in Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali have got all this attention, and Ibrahim Traoré in particular is receiving all of this scrutiny. Meanwhile, this sort of scrutiny is supposedly based on the idea that these are military men who are not supposed to take power. They illegally took power in a push, in a coup. They're illegitimate. They're trying to impose themselves on the people. They should leave power immediately, conduct elections, and all that stuff. And that. But when compared to the coups in Gabon, in Guinea, in Chad, especially the one in Gabon, the reaction from the global media has been night and day. There's been literally no reaction at all. I think it's actually fallen into a sort of narrative memory hole where people barely even remember that there was a coup fairly recently in Gabon. I think this was in 2023. where the person who purported to be elected supposedly was taken out by the military, and the military person who was responsible for that has just perpetuated himself in power, held an election where he supposedly won, was it 90% of the vote or something, and supposedly he's the elected president now. And apparently there's been no scrutiny whatsoever. So I just thought, from your point of view, how interesting do you find it that there's that discrepancy? And I'm not going to ask you why is there a discrepancy, because I think the answer is obvious. But from the point of view of someone who writes about this kind of thing, and especially from the sort of Western gaze, um, how what has been the basis of that disparity in sort of global reception between these two things? And from a narrative African point of view, what could regular people, because I think we accept that this is going to be a bottom up thing, what could regular people, the average Joe who is listening to this space, what could regular people do that could drive the point home further that this is the push for African sovereignty isn't going to be a flash in the pan, and it's not going to be sort of narratively bullied in the way that previous attempts have been in the past?
Thank you so much. I feel very honored and very privileged. You know, sometimes being white, you have these privileges and you can come in and be on a panel with the most outstanding African people. And I'm very grateful for that, to you and to Ali and the most amazing panelists. I must say, including my very own political mentor, Dr. Shabalala. So if I say anything that is poor, you can blame her, but I have great admiration for her. And to so many friends across the continent that I see, Mudge, Kenyan in Germany, so many people. Clayson, you're looking at me and I'm anxious that I'm going to say something that you don't like. And Apostle and the beloved EFA fighters who have stolen my heart. You know, your question is absolutely critical, David. And I think we have to ask and I didn't acknowledge Musa. I've never heard such an outstanding speech, and I'm absolutely captivated. It's such an honor to even be in your presence. You know, we shouldn't be surprised at the response of the West, because whiteness, white control is a beast, it's a monster, and it works 24 hours a day to ensure its omnipotence over the continent. And bizarrely, the chains that we see today are as brutal as those under colonialism. Now, I think the Honorable Musa had said this earlier, that as long as the system or the people in Africa, the leaders, serve Western interests, they don't care actually about what form of democracy or not is taking place. They do not care about dictatorship. They do not care about the violation of human rights. As long as it works side and side for the Western agenda, for whiteness, for white supremacy, they will tolerate anything. And I think that raises some critical questions for a young generation. Is we need to unpack, perhaps thinking is the most revolutionary thing we can do, to try and get out of a paradigm where the African is still second in his own country and her own country, a second-rate citizen to a white sector like myself, and to horrible chains of capture through debt and other things, which many people have unpacked. So what I find interesting, so they wouldn't be worried about the coups that are probably sponsored by dollars and complacent leaders. What the West loves best is compliant leaders who go and curtsy to their Western masters. And unfortunately, in South Africa, we have a leader like that who rushes off to the UK, for a wedding or a death of a former colonizer. Even in South Africa, we have the ANC government virtually handing back power to whites. It's unbelievable. So, but what this does, it creates an opportunity for revolutionary people to shift the world, because Africa is the world. Donald Trump may think America is, but the future vests in Africa. But the future of Africans will depend on their actions now. And I think we are so blessed to have Traore in our midst, that in our generation and our lifetime, we've had the privilege that we can actually have a leader of this caliber. I must say, in my writings, and my favorite leader of all time is Thomas Sankara, I've written extensively about him. And the fact that we have somebody who's reflecting so much of his values and love for his people, it makes me want to weep with happiness. In South Africa, we too lost the president we should have had when Steve Biko was slaughtered. I say in my book, a blackguard slain on the pulpit of white tyranny. We cannot allow that to happen. We have to evoke the passion and philosophy of Frans Fanon now and say not again. The system has to die, and we have to introduce a system that works for Africans first, to restore the dignity of the Black child. I think, just in conclusion, just to make a couple of points, and perhaps from a white, I always describe myself as a white settler, and for Apostle, who runs lovely EFF spaces in South Africa, he always introduces me as his favorite white settler. And so perhaps speaking, just ending on a white perspective, the thing that white people fear most is unity of Black people. If Black people unified, it would actually wipe out whiteness completely. And that, to me, if I have sent any message in my writings, it's to speak about that. The other thing, just as I finish, is that what we have is unfortunately a sheepish, what Biko spoke about is a sheepish mentality amongst an older generation of Africans, because particularly of apartheid suppression, that most Black leaders are so happy to just eat the crumbs at the master's table. And that table has to be destroyed. That table belongs to Africans. And what I would also like to see, just that, and this is my final note, is that I think not enough is spoken about the terrible cultural genocide and erasure that has taken place on a continent that has the richest and most beautiful culture, knowledge, and wisdom. The time is now, and I think this is just such a powerful introduction to a revolutionary era. And perhaps, in the words of the great Thomas Sankara, who I may misquote, please forgive me, but let us dare to invent the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kim Heller. That was Kim Heller, the author of the book White Lies. If you haven't read the book, it's something that you probably should make a note of doing. It's available on Amazon. So before I bring Dr. Masaga into the space, because he's been sending me messages, I know he has a lot to say. I'm going to quickly hop over to Dr. Njoya, who is from Kenya. As you may have noticed, we've had speakers from every region of Africa today except East Africa, which is shocking. And when Ali and I were putting the space together, we realized belatedly that we somehow managed to put together a Pan-African space without representation from a region of Africa that has 560 million, which, as you do. So, I'm very grateful to her for accepting my invitation at the very last minute. I know it's not the easiest thing to sort of go through this amount of information and come up with something to say in a short space of time. So I'm not going to put you on the spot by giving you any specific thematic point to speak on, but obviously you've seen the agenda of this space and you're free to offer your thoughts. So over to you.
Peace, greetings, and revolution to everyone. Thank you for having me on this forum. I was going to come anyway. I just look forward to Pan-African spaces because I think from this side of the continent, we are quite starved of these conversations. So I wanted to pick up on what two things which were mentioned, especially by the last two speakers. For me, my research concern for the last 10 or so years has been education. I've been asking, what is it that this Western school system does to us? And I know we've mentioned our concern about Burkina Faso and the AES having to have resort to military interventions, because that is the point which the West is using as leverage to divide Africans, and I'm just going to get to that in a moment. But I wanted to say that one of the reasons why I truly sympathize with the three states in having to resort to military intervention is because there is a group of people that is a weak link in most African countries, and that is rarely discussed, and which is the educated Africans. The Africans who have been to school, who have been raised to expect that their education makes them deserve to be rewarded by the society, and especially through the state. And even Ibrahim Traoré has talked about this. He calls them les esclaves de salon, sort of like the slaves of the salon, the people who think that they are so educated and they are the ones who should advise the rest of the uncivilized Africans about what to do in the modern world. And actually, this was also a weak point for the Sankara government, especially because Sankara had I think he had reduced the number of salaries, imposed a kind of austerity on the civil service. And that actually is a big problem, especially when we are talking about Kenya and East Africa, because this kind of bourgeois mentality of feeling that people need to be rewarded for having gotten certificates from the Western school is part of sort of the entry point for the West. So this is something that we need to be careful about. And educated Africans seem to be very good at camouflage and being anonymous, and yet they are so active behind the scenes. And this is a conversation we've had with David also on my channel. And later on, he uncovered what USAID was doing, especially so-called training journalists, and those are the people who tell the stories. And those, unfortunately, many of them are trained in Western kind of reporting. So we need to be aware that this is one of our weak points, including myself. I'm not distancing myself from that group, but I think I'm aware that we are a group with very many contradictions. And so even when you look at the story of how Traoré decided he'd had it and he would lead a coup, is because of this bureaucratic mentality where the people in power at the time were not taking it seriously, what was happening with the war against the terrorists. And so he comes to Ouagadougou for help, and they say, yeah, we'll send you help, but it never comes. And that's that kind of limpid, what's the word? There's a mentality, especially in people who have been educated and are working in the state. They kind of take things very casually. They are lethargic, but they also tend to be the ones whom the West uses to infiltrate movements in our country. So that's something that we have to be aware of. And I think, and that's why the issue of thinking is really important. We Africans on the ground, the people outside the infrastructure, have to learn our history and learn and know each other's histories, not just of our countries, but of the entire continent, so that when these stories are brought to us through paid journalists, we are aware of what is happening. Because I think one of the things that has been very clear over the last number of decades is that even though the US has weapons, it cannot fight. They always get troops from elsewhere to do their fighting. Wherever the US has gone to fight on its own, it has not won. And so what they do is that if they're going to Iraq or they're going to Libya or they're going to Haiti, they'll get other countries to do that work for them. I think that's a weakness that we can take advantage of, because it means that for them to be able to fight, they have to find people to convince to fight on their behalf. And that's a thinking issue. It means that there are people who are predisposed to believing the American story and fighting on America's behalf. So the issue is not just financial, that many African leaders have seen their colleagues being humiliated and killed in such a beastly manner that they don't want to end up there. There's that. But there's also the fact that many Africans believe the American story. And this is, I see David talking a lot about this in the Nigerian case. And in Kenya, I think it's a very big problem. In fact, just before the senator, before Michael Langley went to the US Senate to talk about the Sahel and especially about Burkina Faso, there were already ripples happening in the Kenyan political sphere, where Kenyan journalists and Kenyan politicians were attacking Traore, and I don't think it's a coincidence. And one of their talking points is, of course, the coup. You know, why did they use a coup? A coup is not legitimate. And if you try to mitigate and say, but what were their options? Look at the landscape that is there in the region. They say, oh, you're just excusing. It's a very liberal kind of argument, which now takes me back to what I'm saying about the school system. It has produced a lot of Africans who are sympathetic to these liberal, disconnected, decontextualized understandings of African history. I think Kenya is a country to watch, partly because we are a very psyoped country. We not only have US bases here, but we also, our political language is very, very, very much controlled by the state organs and by intelligence and by the education system. So when you hear elite Kenyans talking against Traore, then you know that's probably a plant, that something has been planted there, and it's something that people should watch out for. I think, let me just finish by saying how excited I am by this moment to see Africans coming together on one issue. We have talked about this, dreamt about it, sang about it, and yet on yesterday, people came out in Jamaica, in the US, and in different capitals of Africa to support what the Alliance of Sahel States is doing. And this is a momentum that we should take advantage of through the different kinds of mobilization that we can do, be it military, be it information, be it mobilizing, all that. And I think it's really important. I think Dr. Ibrahim said this. It's really important that we manage the stories, because the US can have 10,000 arsenals in it has 10,000 weapons in its arsenal, but it cannot fight unless people are convinced about their agenda. And that's what we have to fight against with the narratives. I'm also concerned a little bit about I would like to hear what others on this in this space think about how come it is we are talking about Traore. Why is the US focused on Traore? because there's a disadvantage that they want to hype one person so that we forget about the unity and we make this a very individualist, like a star kind of thing, and we forget that the agenda is unity and a common politics. So I haven't yet decided what my position is on that, but that's something I'm concerned about. So thank you very much for this space, and Viva Africa, Viva.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Njoya. And before I go to Dr. Masanga, actually, I don't know if he's still on the space. He appears to have dropped off. I'm going to put Ali, my co-host, on the spot here. Now, obviously, you work in media, so I think you are best placed to answer this question that I'm going to throw at you. And this question has to do with weaponization of media and civil society spaces in Africa. Now, I'm sure we don't need to go over how USAID and associated organizations have essentially seized full control over most of what we think of as journalism in Africa and civil society spaces as well, and how that has been used in multiple ways and on multiple occasions to carry out both soft and hard regime change operations, to shape policy, to basically interfere with the internal workings of our countries from top to bottom in every conceivable way, up to and including deciding who the head of state should be. Now that we, the regular people, happen to have a weapon that can be used in response, which is the internet, multi-directional media. Now that CNN and the BBC and the Voice of America no longer set the narrative for the world, and in fact, thanks to Mr. Trump, the Voice of America doesn't even exist anymore. Now that we have a sort of window of opportunity, because it seems as if the empire is in a period of flux. There's a bit of infighting going on, and we have the weapon that we have. Over the next, say, 24 to 48 months, practically speaking, what can we do to push this forward?
Well, I didn't see that one coming, but I will give it my best shot. I think I need to put it out there that there is no independent media anywhere. I've been with most of the so-called international media houses. I've been with the BBC, I've been with Bloomberg, CNBC, and the West. So there is an independent media out there, and if I want to give you an example of how multidimensional and how the media landscape has changed, is that I'm actually, on a spaces with a very good friend of mine, a young brother who is facing treason charges in Nigeria for the work that he did in the media space, in the media game, for exposing a fraudulent president, right? So this is what is frustrating the the so-called traditional media, because all it takes is that now everybody is almost a journalist. There is citizen activism. Like we saw with the incident that happened in Kenya with the shooting, because of the vibrancy of the Kenyan digital footprints. Everything that was happening now is actually coming back to haunt those that pulled the trigger and the victims. So where we are now, and going back to what Dr. Musa said, we should never lose this momentum, because we can easily change this game from where it is now to being a ground activation. For instance, I've coined a term that is called a democratic coup, which is my description of what happened in the Sahel states. And with those that I work with in the media space, I never accept anybody calling them a junta government. They're not. Okay. To me, it was a hybrid of a revolution, with a gun. Okay. So where we are now, we've got the potential to take the power from the bureaucrats, using these very, same platforms, and energize the base, energize the revolution, give this power, especially to the youth. I mean, I've got tremendous respect for the young people of Kenya, and I hope the youth in Nigeria, in Zimbabwe, and other parts of Africa can actually see how we can transform digital activism into something that is pragmatic. Again, coming back to the role of media, I mean, I would say that. Um, the reason why Russia today is off one of the biggest, distribution platforms, in Africa, it's exactly that. I mean, Russia today is off multi-choice, right? It's part of controlling the narrative. It's part of controlling, what goes out there, because obviously them having a voice which is presenting alternative views was a point of discomfort. But with that ban, it comes across other innovative ways of getting, our stories across. Look at Africa Stream. The way, the Western powers came after them, right? A small media house which was seen as a threat. So I think, in all honesty, David, I can say that we are now in a space where we are very much empowered. I don't know if you saw my other tweet where I said we are now the media, not necessarily who we are working for, but we are now the media, because you find one account with perhaps 20 million impressions in a day or two. I mean, between me and you, we easily pull those numbers. So I think it's the power that we should use with a certain levels of responsibility. And for us, to get where we are now, it's through media interactions. I think me and you once had our issues, and I think we actually once blocked each other, but we found ourselves working together when Tinubu came into the space, and we found each other and we started working on this thing. The guys in Burkina Faso, they knew me from 6-7 years ago, because I've never changed my profile picture from day one. It has always been that of Thomas Sankara, right? When I spoke to one of the generals, he actually said the time then they started seeing some of my posts, they were still very junior officers in the barracks. But these are guys that are now running Burkina Faso. So we should never underestimate, the power that we hold in our hands. And I mean, I was saying even to Dr. Musa, who I respect, for the guidance, for the mentorship, and for all the support that he has given us, to say this shouldn't just be another, talk shop. I mean, where we talk and nothing happens. We need to come out of here with pragmatic, implementable, measurable results, so that at least we can spur on, the revolution that we've started across Africa. That's what I can say for now.
Thank you very much, Ali. I don't know, is Dr. Masanga back on the space? He doesn't appear to be back. I'm going to open up the space
He's back.
in
He's there.
limited fashion. Okay, I can't seem to find him.
He
Give me a
has
sec.
requested the mic. Let me see if I can. Right, there you go.
Okay,
Yeah.
I've just brought him up. We've also got Benga Aborowa in the house. I've just brought him up. For those who don't know him, he's a news anchor at News Central, which is one of Nigeria's largest 24-hour TV stations, and he's also a committed pan-Africanist, which again is rare in the Nigerian media space. Not many people are brave enough to be that, believe it or not, because Nigeria is that kind of place. So welcome to the panel, Benga, and I think Dr. Masanga will go first if he's ready to speak.
Yes, I am here.
All right.
Dr. Masanga is a regular on News Central, and I've known him for years now, so I would yield the floor to him. Thank you, David.
Okay. First of all, David and my African man from Zimbabwe, the rest of you, Sophie, Shabalala, my brother from Libya, Kim Muhera, the rest of you, Maj, the honorable ministers, presidents. I've seen about 4 presidents in the platform down there listening to us tonight. I am one of the few people in Africa who doesn't fear and who doesn't lie. I say it as it is. If you want to kill me, I've reached the stage to die. And God will know he gave me good 69 years to live on planet Earth. One, we have talked, and I liked the speech of Admiral the Shabalala. One of the problems that Africans have is we don't speak out. We don't have people who speak out when things are bad. They are gone. They are gone. Mugabe is gone. Mhm. Kaunda is gone. The last one went away. We have nothing now. We have people who want to solve problems of others. Me, I'm not going to speak like an academic here now. I'm speaking as an African who first got a gun in 1978 to fight Idi Amin. Yes, yes. At that age, I did not fear. I walked on foot. I am happy that Musa is here today. How many people remember Gaddafi? How many people have named Gaddafi street in their towns? Gaddafi left everything. At least he made a mark somewhere, everywhere in African country. In my country, we have mosques, hospitals, churches built by Gaddafi. But how many presidents remember him? If you ask them about the Gaddafi, they even scratch their heads in that hall of theirs, or AU, where they go for photos. Now, let me be very honest. The first attack for me is the attack on African Union. African Union is dead, ready for burial or waiting to be buried. Is captured. Hello, David. Is captured. People like, there are some presidents who should not be in African Union. Starting with Tunubu. Tunubu shouldn't even come to African Union. To do what? To do what? And the people are talking here. Tunubu is the man plotting, logistically, supplying a regime change in Burkina Faso. Tunubu went to France for 2 weeks. This coup, and he has already, you know, what is he going to do? What? What? What will he do to us? To some of us? He can threaten David, but not military men like us who have also picked guns. Don't threaten people. Tunubu is number one enemy for West African ECOWAS. The second enemy for Burkina Faso is the Burkina Faso president who took over Ivory Coast. Yeah. I and Mbeki were the last people to depart Abidjan, trying to plead. To plead. The French just came installed Ouattara. That Mafiki Zolo. Ouattara. I went to fight David. I fought so hard in the ICC. I stood, I walked, I traveled, I stood outside ICC with my age fighting for Babugo to be released. I was telling people Babugo had no case. This man was, if you are taking Babugo to ICC, you should have taken Ouattara, because Ouattara was not fighting with water. Ouattara was fighting with guns, and the Babugo was fighting with guns. Why didn't you take them too? We are here. Now, you see another war is coming, David, around that region. Watch. You know why? Ouattara is a Burkinabe. You people fear to talk. He's not an Ivorian. Yes, I found the truth. We found the truth. We found the truth. This is from Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso, that's why he wants to overthrow and go there, because here he extended the term limit, age limit. You saw he attempted to extend the term limit. Then he went for age. Oh, I'm not 86. Eh? These are some of the creatures that Africa should not allow anywhere near African Union. Now, if a coup is coming from, what does the law, what does the Charter of African Union say? You can suspend a member state, but Article 4.8, chapter, read the chapter. I don't need to, even if you are taking me to the grave, I will recite it for you for free. 4.8 says the state remains a member state. Has AU spoken? No. We went and put a lumpen from Djibouti. A French mall from Djibouti. I'm honest. Listen to me, leaders who are here who voted for a lumpen, a French mall. And then we again voted another French mall. You see Algeria attacking Mali? What is the problem here? I'm not going to talk academics. I have a lot of that. Yes, I went to the same universities where these guys molested everybody here. Even if you give me an exam with Trump, I will beat him in political science. He doesn't know. Some theories. But I can write when I've closed my eyes. The only problem he defeats me is he has money and he's white. Therefore, I stand my ground. Look at these people. Look at them. Look at these guys. You younger men. Look, rise up. Look at these guys. Look at what they did in African Union. Instead of saying a man who can walk and say, hey, Traoré, come here and sit down. We have brought a man who recites, who actually accepts French. He's a French puppet. Djibouti is a French nation. Organized by the French, supplied by the French. Even the bread eaten is from France. So now you bring such a man, you think he's going to talk about his master? Who has captured the African Union? The French. For 8 years, a tall guy, a Fulani from Chad, called Mahamat Faki. I'm bringing it out so that the people know. Who killed Idris? Who killed Idris? Who killed Idris? Idris goes to the front line. A rebel force in Libya. Where is Mossa? Mossa, listen to me. General Khalifa Haftar has 30,000 men in Libya, south of Libya. That 30,000 men are disturbing the Nile corridor. Don't come here to, this. Who is arming them? France. Who's arming them? UAE. I am here speaking from The Hague. I am in The Hague. I am in Hague here. I listen to the case of Sudan versus UAE. What will you do? What? Did you take me to school that I will know I should not come to listen to this case? I listened. You know that case on Monday? Breaking news. You watch, you'll see. Who arms these people? The same uniforms that killed us in Somalia are the same uniforms that Qatar wears. So, to Al-Shabaab break these stores to steal uniform. Hey, don't be stupid, Africans. Rise up. Rise up. Look at this. AU. That point is finished. The AU is moribund. It's dead. It's a photo show. Presidents who are not down here, listen to me. What will you do? You are my age. Listen to me. You are lying to this younger man. You go there for photos and you showing your perfumes and smelling each other. Why, if you were going there for serious business, why don't you suspend Mr. Tunubu? What is he doing there? Why don't you suspend Paul Biya? What is he doing there? What's Paul Biya doing there? When he doesn't even know where he is. Paul Biya is massacring people. As we speak now in southern Cameroon. He's killing people. More people have died in southern Cameroon. Who's talking? It has been, they have left this Matanga only in court here in ICC, in where? Let me come to Mosa. Resolution 1973 of the United Nations Security Council, which my sister Sophie talked about, mandated NATO to protect civilians in Libya. I want you to tell me which civilian did Mr. Sarkozy protect? Mr. Sarkozy stole money from Libya. 4 billion euros. Is there anybody amongst you here following Sarkozy apart from this man speaking to you? Sarkozy was sentenced for 3 years. I labored. I put in my amicus curiae. I don't know whether most of you know what an amicus curiae is. A friend of the court saying, this man stole Gaddafi's money. Then he went and reported Gaddafi that he had nuclear weapons. Where are the nuclear weapons? Where are they, Mosa? Where are they? Who kept them? Since then, David and African, look at the scenario. We have moved. People have moved on. Let's move on. Please move on. I don't want to attack South Africa today. I'm in a good mood because I would attack that gentleman called Zuma. I know what he did. Sophie, I will not go there today. We are in a good mood today. He called his ambassador. And you know what Zuma did? South Africa was given arms by Libya to fight apartheid. If Zuma had told his ambassador to abstain, the motion would have collapsed. May God help him also. He didn't. Sophie was very diplomatic. Said the ambassador told them when you are an ambassador, you saw a mistake, then you say you are voting. No. If German abstained, Brazil abstained, India abstained, the motion was going to collapse. NATO would have not come with their guns. But look here, African countries, including that man there. Who was the president then? This guy, this man with a hat in your country. David, what is his name? Good luck, or good bad Johnson. What is his name? That's something like that.
Good luck, Jonathan.
Hey, these are the people who should not walk. When you see them that they are supervising elections in Africa, my fault. Which elections? These are the people authorizing nations to vote against their fellow nation. Resolution 1973 mandated protection. Dr. Musa, were you protected? Have you followed up? You are a journalist yourself. Can you join me? I've gone to the European Court of Justice to block Mr. Sarkozy single-handedly. To block him. He says he cannot go to serve 1 year sentence. I am saying he's fit if he can have so many concubines every night. How can he not be fit to serve 1 year sentence custodial? And I blocked it last week. This week, actually. It is Tuesday. I blocked it. The judges accepted. Check. They accepted. You don't play about with Matanga. We accepted. Let's discuss. This guy should not make any entry in the European court. He has killed Libyans. Look at Libya. Look. Okay, they find you with 4 billion euros. Why don't we return the 4 billion euros to the Libyans? This money must be returned. I'm not looking for it myself to go in my pocket. I want the money returned to the Libyan people. They have divided Libya into two, Benghazi and Tripoli. How do you say you are African unity, you African Union, my foot, and you have two people governing a country? Where is African Union? Let me go to the other point. Dishonesty. All these conflicts in Africa happened because our leaders are dishonest. Let's look at the conflict of DRC Congo. The rebels are dishonest. The presidents, the neighboring countries, all of them. Show me one country that does not receive diamonds. David and African. And my fellow colleagues who are here. You have pinpointed on one small country because it had done very well. Rwanda has done very well. We had Dr. Matanga. Kagame found me in a camp. He's younger than me. He's 65, I'm 69. He found me in Tabora. And I'm not going to point fingers at him. He's a soldier like Matanga. Therefore, I'm not going to point fingers at him. But look at all countries surrounding. There's 9 neighbors of DRC Congo. All of them benefit from DRC. Why do you accuse only one? We are not honest. The government in the Congo itself, these are part of the problems. Before I come to my friend Traore, I visited, I'll tell you the story. Look, everybody, even the government, Tshisekedi is not honest. There are 240 standing armies in DRC Congo, ladies and gentlemen. Only you are talking about one. Now, how you solve 239? Are you not, unless you went to a school compound, but you never went to a classroom? If your father dropped you in a school compound and you never went to a classroom, it is your problem. Go back and study. All people are not honest at all. The rebels are not honest. Let me tell you frankly on this platform, the rebels are fighting for a state. Can I repeat that? The rebels are fighting for a state. They are not telling you. Then if you don't tell me, I've told Uhuru Kenyatta, get out. Get out of this mess. He's my friend. If people, rebels come to the table, I've listened to all these discussions when they were in Nairobi. I've listened to the discussions. All these peace talks you see. Look at Sudan. David, look at Sudan. We go. I was in Geneva with RSF and this other team when during Biden's term, when they called us to Geneva. These groups don't come in to talk because they are dishonest. America accuses Kenya of giving safety to RSF, but America and Saudi Arabia give shelter to Burhan. To Burhan in Jeddah. Why do you stop Kenya from also organizing the other group to go and fight, to go and sit on table? Every rebel commander has the best where to sit. I have negotiated a war. I ended the Northern Uganda War of Konyi. This is the man speaking, the one who went and spoke to Konyi 21 times, said, it is over. You can go wherever you go, no more guns. But every side assured us, frankly, said, we are funded, we are the ones giving Konyi guns. President Museveni himself, he's here, or some people are here, he will tell you, we went to Kampala, he told us, I was the one funding SPLA to fight Bashir. So from today, I'm not giving SPLA any more guns. Sincerity. The war ended. We put Konyi on table. He signed the 5 agreements. Americans wanted to kill him. I am not an international policeman to look for Konyi. Those who want to look for him, my mandate was to bring peace to Uganda. And that peace is holding. 17 years passed, no gunshot has ever been rung. That's how they do a peace process. The dishonesty is what kills Africa. Number 3, wrong charter. Africa has a wrong charter. That's why now we find ourselves, AU has a wrong charter. That's why we find ourselves, leaving a younger man in Burkina Faso naked. We can't some people can't defend him because of a wrong charter. The Charter of African Union was made in 1963, David. Some of you on this platform were not even born. We still have a wrong charter in place. Yes, that's a wrong charter. It can't work today in the current situation of a madman from Atlantic Ocean across. It can't work. You sell your visa for $50 and you call yourself African Union. $50. You sell your visa. America takes our money from this continent every day in Kampala, Uganda. 5,000 people line up at American embassy for visa to America. America gives only 500 out of 5,000. 4,500 non-refundable money. Are you Africans? Did you go to school, some of you here? Kasqued, I can see you here. Did you go to school, all of you? Honorable Kasqued. Where does this money go? 4,500 times.
A disaster.
4,000. Honorable Kasqued. $4,500 for people times $200 per visa of America, non-refundable money. How many embassies over America in Africa? How much money do they collect for us, which they don't refund? And when there is earthquake, they say we are giving us aid. They are giving us our own money. Now, Africa with Kruger National Park in South Africa. Listen, Kruger Park. There is no Musungu who has an animal that looks like the one in Kruger Park. They come to see our animal. Raise the visa. Don't tax the people. Raise the visa to $1,000 per visa. Children, 500. You'll have the clean crop of Bazungu coming to your country. You don't know what to do. You are fighting people. You are taxing people, overburdening people. So that charter must change to protect Honorable Ibrahim Traoré. I've been to Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali six times. At least in Burkina Faso, I've seen. I want anybody here to put up his hand from any country where you have 800 ambulances with doctors inside. Do you have your country, how many ambulances motorized that can go with doctors, 2 doctors, 3 nurses, and other people with operational, with equipment, medicine that can drive in the villages? Traoré has bought them. They are there. Tractors, they are there. I've seen them in Ogadudu. How many of you from Nigeria can get $10,000 out of Tunubu's bank to go and take your patient to China? To India. How many? To get $10,000 out of Nigerian bank, you need to feed a bank manager tea, plus on top of this dinner. Then he tells you come on Tuesday. In Niger across, ladies and gentlemen, to get $10,000 is 25 minutes. You have $10,000, you are going. Is that a bad military regime? Is it a bad military regime? I agree with Sophie when he said time has come to engage these guys, these younger men. Tunubu is the one who caused all this blunder. He threatened these younger men. You can't threaten a military man when you're a civilian who has been selling cocaine in the US and threatening people like David because they are looking for your history of cocaine. And you woke up with big traces around Africa that I'm a president of. President of what? You have sold the cocaine. Then you walk around and say, I'm president of Nigeria. Which Nigeria? Nigeria is not a country. Nigeria is a zoo where people are killing each other every day. And you come here, you tell us Nigeria. Now it's Nigeria. People come and occupy your farm and kill you, kill your wife, and then that they are herders. Where are these herders coming from? Nigeria has got only 20 million cows. India has 300 million cows. Now India manages its cows better than this zoo. This is zoo. This is zoo where people are being killed every day. You wake up, Benga interviews me on the TV. 200 people abducted by who might this one? Who they kidnap? What the hell is this in Africa? Who is going to speak for Africa? Let me come to the last point. We have new colonial masters. The Gulf states. The money we steal on the African continent, we bank there. Now we steal it on African continent and then go and bank it in Dubai, in Qatar. Let me ask you people, you Africans who are here, if Qatar knows where every terrorist is, why does America harass us who don't know where these terrorists are? Can an African country host a meeting called Hamas? Maybe the general from South Africa can answer me. Can you host the Hamas? If you try to go to Hamas, they will bomb you. Now, Qatar, whenever you see Qatar, whenever you see Total Oil, you will see Qatar. Cape Delgado, the South Africans should know this. There was no oil in Cape Delgado. Ladies and gentlemen, Total Oil went to look for chaos. Look for chaos. And created chaos there. We withdrew, and Al-Shabaab masters called Qatar. Even if you give me $1 million to settle in Qatar, I would rather go to the grave if it is near. There are some countries in Africa, even if you tell me to go and settle like America, what for? America is a violent place. Everybody opens the wardrobe with guns. Is this a place where you want to settle? It's better to die in a place, civilized place. But America is not worth it. So for me, let me tell you the truth. This new capture that is coming from the Gulf states, most of you who are researchers, go to Doha. When you go to Doha and you know Arabic, ask some Arab man on the street, what is this office? He will tell you, this is the office of Taliban. Huh? Taliban. What is this one? This is the office of Al-Shabaab. Huh? Then you say, but Americans are telling us, look for Al-Shabaab, 10 billion or 3 million head. Look at the double standards. So coming down to White Traore is your light, is your star, is our shining star, Africans, old, young, middlemen, youth, women. This man is our star. We must rise up, create more platforms, David, of this nature, to talk and tell Americans we are fed up. You touch the man, all of us. You know people can take action. Yes, you Americans are everywhere. Yes, they're everywhere. You touch Mr. Traore when he's buying ambulances for his people. You talk of gold. You know one of the biggest mistakes, as I learned, one of the biggest mistakes in all these European countries, I have lived in the United Kingdom for 40 years. But if you are arrested by a Jamaican policeman, stopped for driving, speeding, he will take you to court because he wants to get promotion. But if you are arrested by a Mzungu and you tell him, sir, I'm sorry, I was rushing because my child, the school was going to take him to social services, they will allow you. Our fellow black people like that general called general legally. You know, this once you are a slave, you have a problem. I have never been a slave. But look at this. I'm sorry to go that way, David. This slave mentality has caught us. This guy says he wants to arrest gold. Whose gold is it? Has Trump got a share in the gold of Burkina Faso? Has he? Have we got a share in Minnesota? Have we got a share in Miami? Have we got a share in Arizona? Have we got a share in California? This is our continent. Why should somebody come come and tell us whose democracy? David, don't write democracy anymore. Write African democracy. You're a very good guy. You are knowledgeable. Write African democracy. There is not American democracy anymore. The democracy in America is transitional. Not transition, transactional. Transactional democracy. The type of saying, give me minerals, I will give you guns. To go and do what? The guns are going to kill people. The guns are going to kill Congolese. Now they have signed an agreement with Ukraine. Oil. Transactional democracy. What type of democracy that you want to tell people that Traoré is not practicing in? Why should AU be blindfolded by France, captured by France, manipulated by France, engineered by France? France has killed more people in the Biafran War. 1967, most of you were young. Some of us were grown-ups a bit. We could understand the war. The hammering of the agreement of 1967 war, end of war, was done in my country, Uganda. My country, my president I served, Dr. Milton Obote, supported Biafra. The biggest problem that we have on this continent as I land is Nigeria. Nigeria needs to be rearranged. Congo needs to be rearranged. Let's be very honest. Let's start talking. You cannot, even if you go to Jesus and ask for mercy, to the nearest angel called Gabriel, ladies and gentlemen, there will be no peace in Congo. If you don't give a state, watch it. Even if you go again and ask Angel Gabriel whether there will be peace in Nigeria, there will be no peace in Nigeria until you rearrange it politically. Political solution, not a judicial, not army. You can't use army to kill people. Nigerian army kills civilians instead of protecting them. All the series of News Central, I've seen in women crying, saying, we reach roadblocks. It is not the rebels. It is not anybody. The army itself is killing people. So this is my speech. Pray for me. Like Lucky Dube, remember me. Because time has come for someone to speak out like me. I'm reaching the age where God can call me. But I want to leave a legacy that I spoke my mind. That is, I will block Mr. Sarkozy. I will make sure that he goes to jail to serve, to carry a pail of his own cow dung, as the lady said, carry it out and pour for having destroyed Libya. I will make sure that we get the freedom that the people of Biafra, Amazonia, and the DRC Congo, and the Sudan get. I am there. I'm not going to give up. France always threatens people. There is one message I want to tell you, David, as I land. Whenever you see Obasanjo, run. Kaskwele is here. Will tell you that Obasanjo run is not a good. If you see an agreement where Obasanjo is involved, bad luck. Run. Run. The South Africans say run mofrupe. What? Sophie is run mafrupe. What is that, man? run, run. That South African Shabalala, Madam Admiral, they, whenever you see Obasanjo, run, run. David, I cannot tell you the story of Obasanjo here. When we went to negotiate the Kunda thing, what he did, I am not, I'm sorry. But whenever I see him in any conflict, run. Run, Moripe. Is it Mofupe or whatever? Run. Because peace will not come with that guy. He is an agent of the French. I'm telling you, Kofi Annan was an agent of the French. There was nothing. How could Kofi? Do you know how Kofi Annan got the job? Because of the wife.
Dr. Masanga,
So
we've
I am
actually
coming down, David. Thank you very much. I see a lot of comrades here. I want to thank you. I can talk until 5 hours on Africa. Everything does not evaporate from me. I don't use notes. I've suffered. I stood for this country called Zimbabwe from 1998. Kaskwere was my man, my friend. He's here today. He will tell you there is nowhere they gave me even 10 shillings. He will tell you, but I've not given up. If you want to dismember Zimbabwe, you have to fight Matanga. The disagreement I had with Tony Blair is that I stood up. I did not care about my Ugandan English. I put my motion in Brighton. I said, Mr. Prime Minister, you have to contain the leadership of Zimbabwe, not to isolate them. People did not listen to me. We were in Mbeki, Mama Konzazana, running about, and Obasanjo betrayed us again. He voted with Howard to remove Zimbabwe from the Commonwealth. Have you heard that? That is your Obasanjo, you see. I felt like fighting Obasanjo in Melbourne House in London, almost beat him up. I said, what? I was in, how? I told Mudenge, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, look at this foolish man. Look at this. An African voting with Howard of Australia to remove Mugabe, Zimbabwe from the Commonwealth. These are some of the things in Africa. Therefore, I want to urge you, fellow Africans, support Traore. At least, let's make more noise so that if they want to kill him, they will know that they will have consequences. Yes, they killed Gaddafi, we kept quiet. Those who took over the state of Libya were terrorists. Yes, they were terrorists that Gaddafi was telling us they are coming. Now, are they not there? Are they not there? Are they not there in the Maghreb? Thank you very much, David and Africana. Thank you, my brothers and sisters on the platform. Tears are dropping. Let me, I don't know what to say, but my Africa betrays itself every day. My Africa is a place where we have plenty. It's a continent without a continent, nothing. Nigeria has let us down, 250 million people, useless. It is the darkest continent on Africa with no light at night. With 241 waterfalls, they buy generators. I hope David Hyundai is not buying a generator from Dubai. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Dr. Masanga. Very packed submission as always. We really should go back to having those weekly sessions with our friend from Kenya. So this space was actually supposed to end at the top of the hour, but I think we've gone 13 minutes over time. But I noticed that Benga is still on the speakers panel. So I think before I invite Ali and the other speakers to give a few closing remarks and close the space, I think we'll just quickly bring Benga up. So Benga, over to you.
Thank you very much, David, and thanks for the opportunity to speak. I would like to say a big thank you to you and Ali for hosting the space. It's I mean, I don't even have the words to qualify. It's an awakening, and we should do this regularly. David and I went to the same high school, by the way, Great Atlantic Hall. I would also like to say a big thank you to your namesake, Dr. David Matsanga. I've had the privilege of interviewing him a few times. Very passionate Pan-African. You heard the way he just spoke now. And also Dr. Musa Ibrahim. Dr. Ibrahim, thank you very much for your mentorship, your advice, and thank you for always being there for us all these years. Ali, Dr. Matanga, Sophie Mkwena, and also the Admiral, and all the previous speakers. What I want to speak about is an African awakening, an African renaissance, and for Africans to hold up their heads and be proud of who they are. Africa is not the dark continent. They should own the narrative. And I feel that's where media and education comes from. So I feel the way we can spark this African renaissance, and also that I love the fact that a lot of young Africans are celebrating Captain Ibrahim Traoré. I mean, I've always been a Sankarist. I feel Thomas Sankara was one of the greatest Africans that walked on the face of the earth. He was way ahead of his times. I remember doing an interview with Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, Nigeria's former foreign minister. And before he got mic'd up, we were just talking about history and things that happened, and Sankara came up. He said a French journalist told him, a French female journalist, that they're going to kill Sankara in about 2 or 3 weeks' time. Sankara was a friend. I mean, Bolaji Akinyemi was foreign minister, but Sankara was also a friend. So Bolaji Akinyemi came back and told then President General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, that please, you have to save this guy's life. You have to do something about it. You can't allow them to kill Sankara, send Nigerian troops, use the excuse of a military exercise. And Babangida told them that, Bolaji, I know you're a good man. If you were sitting on this seat, you might take that decision, but it's beyond me. And I think Sankara knew his end was coming. They told him that Blaise Compaoré, who the West supported, who do you think they would say he was democratic? They support the worst of Africans, and they want to decide which leaders we should support. I mean, look at Paul Biya and Obiang in Equatorial Guinea. How do you even listen? The US doesn't. I mean, just watching that video of General Michael Langley of Africa.com calling Traore a threat to his own people, that is using the resources to keep himself in power, made my blood boil. I was really, really angry. Who the hell is the United States of America to dictate to Africa? Like, we don't have agency on which leaders we should love or which, and even the French president, Macron, the other day was saying it's not yet time that we can be on our own now. Very paternalistic and condescending tones. It's really sad. And the reason why we allow all this sort of rubbish is because we don't know our value. We don't know our place in history. We don't know the potentials we have. We're just happy to be handed down crumbs, or we need some Western validation to prove that, yes, we've arrived. You want to oppress your neighbor. I'm better than my next neighbor. It's really sad. And I think it starts from education. I'll recommend a book, and I'll recommend you can just go on YouTube and listen to Professor John Henry Clark. He wrote Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust, Slavery and the Rise of European Capitalism. I think it would inform you. And I mean, looking at the historical perspective, you understand why we are where we are today. And it would give you a sense of who we really are. The empires that existed in the past, the inventors, the great things that has been done on this continent, and the terrible things that also happened. The African Holocaust, the slave trade, the Congo, King Leopold, and all of that. These things have effects on what we are experiencing today. And the fact that the so-called West, and it's interesting that in this space so far, nobody has mentioned what is happening. I'm glad somebody, I think it was Dr. Matsanga and previous speakers spoke about the UAE's involvement in Sudan in supporting the worst of the worst, the Janjaweed, the RSF. Sudan is a shadow of what it used to be today because of foreign interference. Just 2 weeks ago, there was a conference on Sudan in London by all those trying to get their hands on a piece of Sudan. There was no single Sudanese person. None of the belligerents were present, RSF or Sudanese armed forces. Please, how do you explain that in 2025? It was very reminiscent of the Berlin Conference of 1885. You're discussing Sudan in London, not a single Sudanese from both warring parties or even civilians were present in that meeting. It just shows you the state of the world we are in. And that brings me to this. As we speak, there is a live stream genocide that is happening. The United States, Europe, they have no moral authority whatsoever. They've lost it. They need to get off that. I mean, there's no moral high horse. There's no horse anymore. Gaza has opened the hypocrisy and has really put these Western countries in front of a mirror. A busload of children die every day. They're killed in Gaza. And we watch football, the world just goes on like nothing happens. And this is engineered by Europe and the United States, supporting, giving 100% support to Israel. So tell me, how do we even move from there? What rights do they have to lecture any country about what Traore is doing or anything? Just look at what you're doing in Gaza. And it will always be a pivotal moment for human history. So, I mean, just to wrap up my thoughts, I think we don't have true independent African media. You have African stations that just pick up what they see from the wire services, AFP. They describe, I mean, some of the words they used to describe, impoverished African nation, tiny Madagascar, war-torn. I mean, who describes America as genocide supporting United States of America? I think we should start using that term. Or the United States of America with lax gun laws where people just mass killing, shoot out United States of America. And you see African media organizations using this sort of negative terms to describe their fellow African countries. While we don't even have like a powerhouse, independent, true African media right now, my appeal is that please, for education's sake, you can watch your BBC, you can watch Al Jazeera, you can watch CNN, but also there's something the pre-Socratics used to do. It's called dialectics. They're trained to argue both sides of an argument. Listen to your other side. Watch RT, watch Telesur, watch Press TV, watch TRT World, and then make your judgment, make your informed judgment yourself. And please read. There's so much material. You don't even need to read. Just watch Oxford Union debates. Go on YouTube. I think it's an online university. You can learn so much from it. And you would see that spark will be ignited. And you begin to understand the way things work. And please also, let's try and educate and talk to, like what we're doing now is very educative. And I like it. So, I mean, tiny drop, an ocean is built from tiny drops. And I think we've laid the foundation. We should build on it. And it shouldn't just end as a talk shop. Let's practicalize it like all the previous speakers have suggested and really do something. I'm proudly African, and I believe great things will still come from this continent in my lifetime. And let's support Burkina Faso and Also look at the quality of leaders that we elect, that we're not electing Western stooges and puppets. Thank you.
That was Benga Gorowa, news anchor at News Central, which is, well, I'm not going to rank it, but one of Nigeria's foremost 24-hour news stations. So I think that's all the speakers on our panel. I'm not sure what happened to Ali. He seems to have dropped off again. But I'll just quickly give the mic back to Dr. Kainsile Litchfield Shabalala to give her closing remarks, and then I'll give it to Sophie, then Kim Heller, then Wandia, Joya. I see Xavier Kasukwe is on the speakers panel. Oh dear, we're really going to finish this space today. I think we should give him 2 or 3 minutes to quickly chime something in before we start to close the space. So over to you, Xavier. Are you there? Oh, seems to be having some trouble. Hello? Okay. Okay, so I think we'll revert to what we're planning to do previously. So Dr. Litchfield Shabalala, please, just like a minute or two.
Thank you so much, David. What a space, what a revolution, and what seeds we are planting here. Let's never forget to water them. I think I want to leave us with 2 thoughts. The first thought is that I'm so tired of talking about our leaders. They're my minute part of society. The bigger part of society are us, the citizens, the voters. And it is my proposition that when the soil is not arable, when the soil is not productive, it will never produce good seed. We produce the leaders we produce because we ourselves need to do some reckoning with ourselves. We need to transform us, the soil, so that this soil can produce the leaders that we deserve. We cannot elect Cyril Ramaphosa and then start asking for Pan-African and Afrocentric solutions. I mean, the 2 things don't go together. It's madness. So let us investigate ourselves first before we point fingers at them. They come from us. They're a reflection of who we are. So I like this space because it's exactly what we are doing. We are planting in ourselves as a people. And number 2, I just want to say I love Traore and all. I'm actually going back to Burkina Faso next week. But can we please not do the Western thing of classism? Can we remember that there is General Chiani in Mali, there is in Niger, there's Colonel Goita in Mali. The 3 are a collective. They are working together. That's why they are called the Confederation of Sahel States, AES in French. That's the acronym. So while we concentrate all our energy on Traore, they might just do us one and actually go for the other 2 because all our focus is on Burkina Faso. It's good, but let's remember there are 3 countries and not 1. And I think the very last thing I want to say is we don't have independent media. We don't have all the things we said we don't have because Africans, we don't have the 2 integrities. We don't have territorial, we don't have national integrity, therefore there's no self-determination. And when people don't have self-determination, they are controlled. And truly like dogs controlled by a master, we are set on each other at will. We are told when to fight each other, how to fight each other, because we don't even produce the weapons. We are told what economies to have. We are told what the currencies of our nations are going to be vis-a-vis the dollar or the euro or the pound. So can we start fighting for self-determination? Can we start fighting for territorial integrity and for national integrity? Can we stop deluding ourselves about independence that's not translating to self-determination? Thank you so much once again, and thank you to all the panelists and everybody who listened in.
Thank you very much, Dr. Litchfield Shabalala. I think next on my speakers panel here is Sophie Mokoena.
Well, thank you so much. I just want to say there are lessons that we must learn from the previous incidents. And when we talk about Burkina Faso, I remember going to Burkina Faso. I was on assignment. The former president was there of South Africa. One thing I observed, I think Dr. Matara spoke about that, was that I think Ivory Coast will never rest until they have full control of Burkina Faso. Because even at that time, Blaise Compaoré was very instrumental in dividing Ivory Coast. So I'm not surprised today you'll find a situation where Ivory Coast might be having some interest in destabilizing Burkina Faso. That said, we as Africans, we are enemies, of ourselves, because instead of us supporting each other and building each other, working together, and countries trading amongst themselves, we sometimes are part of the problem. You look at the Great Lakes region, it's Africans who are also part of the external forces or force that is causing mayhem in the DRC. Look, after South Africa lost 14 soldiers, now we are told the very same leaders have decided to listen to the United States of America. America didn't even lose one soldier. So unfortunately, I don't know, I think the time has come that as citizens of the continent, we must realize that we are leaders in our own right. And I agree with Dr. Shabala that let's not continue to argue about the leaders. We should ask ourselves, what am I doing to build a better Africa? And in our small way, we can build a better Africa. That should be our focus every morning when we wake up, that in my little corner, what am I going to do to build a better Africa? I agree, people might criticize us, those some of us who are in the media and say we are not independent, we're this and this. That's a misnomer. Many journalists from different parts of the continent, there are journalists who are very independent. Perhaps our voice is not heard, or we are not heard. But I just want to make an example, and I think Ali is not here. He can testify or can agree with me. When ECOWAS was about to launch or to take a military action against Niger, it was a South African media that was very vocal and covering that story. And there has been communication since then that because of how we covered that story, that led to ECOWAS pulling back. So the media in this country and some of my colleagues on the continent, we do try to ensure that we are able to educate and inform the continent so that people in their respective places where they are or what they are doing they can do what is good for the continent. And some of us, as we are about to wind our activities in this industry, we've tried our level best. And I hope Africans will realize that you can't only rely on leaders to make Africa a better continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophie Mokoena. Could you please be so kind as to mute your mic? Okay. Next on the speakers panel is Kim Heller. I think, hang on a minute. Yeah, Kim Heller. Over to you. Just quickly in a minute or two.
Thank you, David. We're very grateful for the space and hope it's going to become a regular feature because we can be our own media and you've done a wonderful job. And Sophie, we hear you. You know, you are such an amazing beacon of hope for us in South Africa. Your reporting is just outstanding. So we are deeply appreciative. I thought I would just conclude with just a few lines from a poet that I had the great pleasure to work with, Don Matera. And he wrote something that I think is so relevant to the space. He said, now I'm just looking, I've just lost it, just give me one moment. He was speaking about how the era of white supremacy has to end. And he said, these are his words, "I have discovered, yes, that an ounce of gold exceeds the value of a black man's life," speaking about the horror of extraction. And he says, "It's stand, black man, and put that cap back on your beaten head. Look at him in the eye, cold and blue, like the devil's fire, and tell him enough. 3 centuries is more than you can take. Enough." And I think that is, his words speak more than mine. Thank you for including me on the panel.
Thank you very much, Kim. Next on the panel, Sophie, your mic is not muted. I'm going to mute everyone. Okay, bye. Yeah. Okay, so next will be Dr. Wanja Njoya. Then after her will be Dr. David Masanga, then Benga Bo, and then we'll close with Dr. Musa Ibrahim. Dr. Njoya?
All right. Thank you once again for having me on this discussion.
Sorry, we can't seem to hear you. Okay, seems like we might have lost her, unfortunately.
Hello, can you hear me?
So let's. Okay, now I can hear you.
Oh, okay. So I was saying that when Tucker Carlson did that interview with Putin, I think it was 2 years.
Okay, we seem to have lost Dr. Njoya again, which is very unfortunate.
Dear David.
Yes.
Could I please?
Yes, Dr.
Yes,
Ibrahim?
thank you, dear. I just would like to say how happy I am that I have listened to my African brothers and sisters. But please, dear David, you have such a popular and powerful platform on X. Let's think of ways to make our engagement practical and on the ground, not just discussions and intellectual entertainment. You are a genuine pan-Africanist. And I think in the next few days and few weeks, we need to reach out to our brothers and sisters in Burkina Faso, the ones leading the revolution in the Sahel region, and demand, not speak to them softly with quoted words, but demands that they reach out back to us so we can establish a pan-African support network for the revolution in the Sahel region. This network will be partly a digital one, online one, only partly. The rest of it will be on the ground in our universities, schools, political parties, grassroots movements, civil society. This cannot happen by just talking about it. We need yourself, dear David, our brother Ali, the rest of the speakers. We need to have a plan for the next few days to discuss how can we propose a practical, viable plan to Captain Ibrahim Traoré, to his comrades in Mali and Niger, and propose something concrete on the ground. And we need to speak to them with a revolutionary harshness, if I may say that. Meaning, it's like when you are seeing your brother in trouble, you don't come to them softly and say, hey, my brother, I can see that you are, facing death. Do you think it could be possible for me to help you? That's not the way a brother approaches a brother. You force yourself, you go for it, and you go, I am going to help you. I'm going to stand with you. And I really think all pan-African platforms that believe in unity and revolution should come together, write down a plan, and propose it to the revolutionary leaders in the Sahel region, and we should prove our worth and carry it on the ground. That's my last remark. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Musa Ibrahim. For those who joined the space late, Dr. Musa Ibrahim was the late Muammar Gaddafi's last official spokesperson and used to be the Minister of Information in Libya. We're very privileged to have him here today. So I'm going to move on to Dr. Sorry, someone's mic is muted. All right, we're going to move on to Dr. David Masanga, and after him, then Benga Borowa, and then we'll close the space. So, Dr. Masanga, quickly in less than 2 minutes, your closing remarks, please.
But I'm here.
Okay. I'm guessing he said all he has to say. So
you have muted me. Now I'm here.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think
so 2 minutes.
Your finger is touching that button. Today we have not misbehaved. We are good ladies and gentlemen here today. Thank you. Thank you very much, fellow Africans. I want to tell Musa that you have a follower here. You have a man who has gone ahead towards Jerusalem. Follow my work and let's fix Sarkozy. He has to go. He has to return your money. I am there. I'm ahead. 2, fellow Africans, David, encourage people. Let's come here and discuss issues like the issue of today. It's very important for us. And let's speak without fear. They have created this platform for us to speak. Even the man who created this platform is a South African. But somehow he has got lost somewhere in the woods of California. But he will come back to the roots of South Africa. So let's speak up. Let's be constructive. Let's engage other people, stakeholders. But above all, Africa needs you people, needs your voice. The AU is gone. Bananas, gone. It's gone. It's gone. Don't expect anything in 4 years. It will not. Another thing which is a blow to us as we sit here, United Nations Security Council is dead. It's dead. 2 countries fighting 3. Where is the peace? Chapter 7 is dead. So let's clean our mess on the continent. Let's clean ourselves. Let's tell our leaders, please, time has come to engage. Under me, I have the strategy of redemption strategy. Those leaders start thinking about reconciliation. It is the best tool of everything. It's the best way to forgive. Germany is today a big nation because it forgot about Hitler. One of the problems here in Africa is we don't forget, we don't even forgive, we are even fighting, even someone you see him, you want to kill him. That's not. But today, let's defend our continent. And let me tell you, David, you've done a great job today. Do you know there were 12 officials from Burkina Faso whom I told to come to this conference, to this space? They are down there. The most of top officials, they are taking notes. You will be called very soon, David, yourself. They will call you. They are down here. And I know them very well. I told them, please, your country is being discussed. Come, let's support this gentleman. And as Shabarala said, 3, there are other 2 there. The other one who took down the uniform and then went for a fake. Have you seen what they have done, AU? They have now started recognizing him because France has told them, recognize him. This one of Gabon, this useless guy here, he's useless. Then what is the difference? You take your uniform off and carry a sham election, then call it an election. Idiots. These are idiots. I've no good words. I'm sorry. These are not very good people. This guy of Gabon, this guy of Paul Biya, this guy of Tunubu, these are the people who should not be in the Commonwealth. And I'm happy there is a lady from Ghana, a new lady. I'm telling you, by the end of this year, some countries will be suspended from the Commonwealth, beginning with your country, David. I'm working hard in London. I am working hard, walking to that office every day to tell Madam, you are Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ghana. Suspend these guys. Suspend Ghana. Suspend Paul Biya. They are killing people. Why did you suspend Abacha? Why did you suspended Abacha from Commonwealth? Why are we not suspending Tunubu and Paul Biya? What are they doing in the Commonwealth? What will the king do to meet the King of England meeting such men where 400 girls are missing every day? Where they have taken Nnamdi Khan, a British national, detained him without even a good trial. What the hell is this? Watcha. Let's tell, what will they do? They can kill you. They killed Patrice Lumumba and hid his teeth for 64 years. And now you tell me you want to talk with this stupid Belgium. Even if you give me money to sleep in Brussels, I can't. I go for a meeting. There are certain things I'm proud of. Akia Mungu. I'm proud. I can't sleep in Brussels. How do you hide a man's tooth, the family for 64 years? And then Tshisekedi, with all his big volume of body, empty body, came and welcomed. Then why were South African troops dying for in Congo? What were they?
Dr. Masad.
Thank you, David. All the time notify me. And Africana, notify me. I would deliver blood to such people. Do I eat at their homes? No. We can't have elders behaving very badly everywhere in Africa. I'm the chief negotiator. I am here. I'm the one in the peace. Peace can be negotiated by younger girls like Eva and Sophie and David. We can sit down and negotiate. And Africana, we can bring peace better than some of these guys. Look at recycled guys. Apart from the man of South African ministry, former vice president, former president, the rest of under Kenyatta and Uhuru Kenyatta, who is credible there? Huh? Who is credible? How can peace come in Congo? How? How? When you give rebels more money to go and enjoy women.
Dr. Masanga, we've gone way over
bye,
time.
my son. Bye.
Thank
You. Thank you very much, my son. By God, all of you.
Thank you very much.
Please, I'm one of the few people who should be sleeping, but I can't sleep when this continent is bleeding. Please, at my age, I have to talk until God takes me away, until we clean the continent. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much, Dr. Masanga. And I noticed there's someone else on the speakers panel who wasn't here before. There's a handle called Horn of Africa Leftist. I'm guessing that must be Ali who brought you up. So I think before we go to Bega to give his closing remarks and then we close the space, I think we'll just give you a couple of minutes since we've already brought you up to the speakers panel. So off you go.
All right, thanks, David. Yeah, so as far as the speakers, thank you for your input. To just bring it in perspective, a lot of the focus
Hello, kings and queens, ladies and gentlemen. Today I stand before you with much respect to show my appreciation for what you have done to support the liberation of our mother continent, Africa. What you have done, Africans around the globe, is not supporting Captain Ibrahim Traoré. You are not supporting Captain Ibrahim Traoré. You are supporting liberation of our mother continent, Africa. What Captain Ibrahim Traoré is to show us the way how we can liberate this continent economically and politically. So, brothers and sisters, as I said, I appreciate and I'm here with much respect to say thank you all, thank you Africans, thank you everyone who stood up and raised his or her voice to support the movement, the liberation of our mother continent, Africa. Thanks Africans, you are told the world that we are no longer divided. You are telling the world we are no longer in colonial era. We are no longer in slavery. Africans, we are united. Those who divided us and thought that we will not come together again, now they are under pressure. Africans, you have shown the world that we are no longer dictated. We are no longer waiting politicians to tell us what is good and right. We are no longer waiting these political leaders to unite us. We have united ourselves under the leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré. We are united under a revolutionary leader, not under political leaders. These politicians that have been sponsored by the West have shocked. And this message must be spread around the globe, around all Africans, and calling each other Africans to push the agenda of United Africa. We must not end in this position. We must move far. We must go beyond of supporting liberation. We must go to achieve a United Africa. Our aim is not to rally or to march on the streets. Our aim is to liberate this continent economically. So all of us must have a clear picture what we want as Africans and what is our desire as Africans. Wherever you are, any African, make sure that you push the agenda of United Africa. I've been saying this many times that we need to bring Africans together. We want to see our brothers and sisters in the diaspora coming back home, investing in our resources. We want to see black people own mines in Africa. We want to see African companies building roads in this continent. Not Chinese only, not Europeans only. We want also Africans to build our roads. We want to see big projects going to Africans. We want to see Africans own means of production. We want big industries to be owned by Africans. We are tired of being market of others. We want also to be producers. And by this movement of liberation of Africa continent, I saw in the near future Africa we are going to unite. So all of us, kings and queens, ladies and gentlemen, we must raise our voices. And this time we are going to raise the voice of unity. Because we are protecting and supporting Captain Ibrahim Traoré, but the reality is that we are talking about unity. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has came as a prophet. You know, prophet comes once and then go. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has came as a prophet. So we must use Captain Ibrahim Traoré to show us the way, to unite us as he has done, of course, to succeed to unite us around the globe, because it is the first time to see Africans coming together the way Africans came together on April 30th, when the Africans united to speak with one voice. So this time we need to move beyond that. We need to also to talk about unity of this continent. You know, I'm repeating the word unity because even these things that are happening right now, if we are so united, I'm sure America could not have power to tell us what to do. But if Africa we are so united, we are talking as a continent or a country of 1.3 billion people, under the leadership of maybe Captain Ibrahim Traoré, America will not touch us. Russia will respect us. China will respect us. But if we continue in a division without coming together, yes, they will wait. The time will come, maybe new leader will come in Burkina Faso. So what will happen? But if we are so united and all we are so revolutionary, we will have one say. We have a common mission, what we want to achieve as Africans. So let us, all of us, push the issue of unity. It is very, very important. Without pushing the idea of unity, we are going nowhere. So kings and queens, ladies and gentlemen, continue to enjoy this video. I have spoken many things, but I was in a journey to visit some place in my homeland, and of course to share the message of hope, the message of unity to our fellow brothers and sisters in different parts of this continent. Thank you. Africa need all of us, need our supports. Africa need us to come together. Those who thought one day Africans will not come together, they have been shocked. They have seen that Africans can come together. They divided us. Right now, they have been shocked. Thank you, Africa, for abolishing these borders. You have shown that we Africans, we have no border. What happened in Burkina Faso is to show that we are borderless. Africans in Caribbean, Africans in Europe, Africans in the continent came together. They think that never happened. I think even since the freedom of this continent, freedom of African nations, no any leader who succeeded to unite Africans like Captain Ibrahim Traoré. So Africans, we should not stop here. We should continue to push. We should continue to express what we want as Africans. What we want as Africans, dear lovely family, is a united Africa. That is our desire. That is our wish. That's what we want to see in your lifetime. It is for the first time in my lifetime to see Africans coming together. Speak as one voice. I saw Africans during George Floyd, but this time we have done wonders. So, as I said and suggested many times, we should also push the issue of United Africa. I've been saying this many times. We Africans, to succeed to support Captain Ibrahim Traoré, we need to unite. Let us make Captain Ibrahim Traoré our new president of United Africa. Africa that is borderless. All of us, we must raise our voice. We must conduct rallies to elect and to appoint Captain Ibrahim Traoré as a new leader of African community. Of African community. All African communities, our leader must be Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Has shown the way, is young, courageous, not afraid, not coward, who stood against exploitation of Africa. And what people don't understand, Captain Ibrahim Traoré is not fighting with white people, or is not fighting with America. Captain Ibrahim Traoré is fighting with a system that are keeping Africans into exploitative issues or exploitative environment. Captain Ibrahim Traoré is fighting against exploitative systems, the system that is exploiting Africa and making Africa poor. If you go around many places in this continent, you will wonder the lives of Africans, how Africans are suffering, how Africans with all these resources are living still in the caves, in the huts. But Captain Ibrahim Traoré has come to awakening all of us. So all of us, fellow Africans, we must show our support. We must come together, not to support Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Don't confuse. We are not supporting Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Captain Ibrahim Traoré is our leader, is leading us to a liberated Africa. So we are supporting our movement, a movement of United Africa, a movement to liberate this continent, a movement that is going to allow Africans to trade among themselves, a movement that is going to allow Africans to decide for themselves. So don't say you are supporting Captain Ibrahim Traoré. No, you are supporting yourself. We will not be respected until Africa is respected. So Captain Ibrahim Traoré has came as a prophet, to liberate to liberate our minds. Right now, Africans, many young people have liberated in their mind. They see that there's an importance for Africans to speak with one voice. There's an importance for Africans to unite. You see, that's what Captain Ibrahim Traoré is doing, and he succeeded. So God, those who believe in spiritual, whatever, in God is working or speaking with people through people. So God is speaking with Africans through Captain Ibrahim Traoré. God is touching the lives of Africans through Captain Ibrahim Traoré. What is God is doing? So don't say you are supporting Captain Ibrahim Traoré. We are not supporting Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has brought by God to show us the way, to take us in another position. So what we need to do as Africans, all of us, to become like Captain Ibrahim Traoré. The way Africans became Christianity or Islam's, we need also all of us to become like Captain Ibrahim Traoré, to preach the gospel of hope, of unity, of peace, of love. That is what we need to do, dear lovely family. Africans, as I said, we need to do something different, to move beyond this, what Captain Ibrahim Traoré has done. We need to make sure that we bring this continent, Africans, together. So we want to see our brothers in Caribbean enjoying the fruits of our mother continent, Africa. This is our mother continent, Africa, dear lovely family. We want Africans to enjoy their resources, Africans to enjoy their minerals, their water, whatever, all things, agriculture. We want Africans not to become beggars, not to become job seekers. We want Africa that have, we want African that is, African continent that is powerful. That's what we want, dear lovely family. So Captain Ibrahim Traoré has shown us the way. And as I said, I traveled to some area. Of traveling to this area is to see the lives of our fellow brothers and sisters in different parts. When you see a leader who is fighting for liberation, you need to send the message. There are some people who didn't get the message of Captain Ibrahim Traoré because of division. So sometimes we try to meet with people, to talk with them, that we have one of our liberator known as Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Those who are in, maybe it is very easy, but people who are living in town, in village, they don't know Captain Ibrahim Traoré. So we move to those people to tell them that Captain Ibrahim Traoré, you see here what African women are doing here. You see. That is the Africa that we are talking about. And that we need to liberate this continent. But all in all, let us keep those things aside. But the message here is that we need to come together. We need to unite. We need to speak with one voice. Africans around the globe, we need to continue to push to have our own agenda. The agenda is right now is liberation of our mother continent, Africa. So we must continue with these strategies. We must mobilize another rally, the rally that will cause Africans to see the importance of united Africa. I'm sure if Africa was united, these things should not be happening. America will not talk about Burkina Faso as if he's speaking with his children. But because we are so divided, that's why America can stand up and speak about any country without fear of anything. But if we can unite, we can stop those disrespect to us, the people of Africa. So kings and queens, ladies and gentlemen, join with us. Make sure that you join the movement of liberating this continent, because Captain Traoré has shown the way and has demonstrated that it can be. And if it is not done, we are the one who we are supposed to do. Make sure that you contribute positively to our mother continent, Africa. Your contribution is very, very important. So kings and queens, let us not speak for too long. Let me end in this and stop here. And thanks all of you, family, friends, fellow Africans, for coming together, for uniting and telling the world that we are no longer waiting anybody to tell us what to do. We are no longer waiting us to say, come and unite. Thanks all of you, dear lovely family, Africans.